So I was already pre-approved. I was getting the tour, looking at things. I said, I wanted to have it inspected. So the guy went and inspected and gave me a report, and I told my real estate, he said, okay, let's move forward. And she comes back in 6 hours and tells me it's sold. I was like, what? And she said, yeah, someone
It
offered
is
me
return
that.
of Durham.
Bought it. So I told my parents. My parents bought it. Right out from underneath it. And I'm glad they did. I'm glad they did.
I can see, is it coming through?
I see it on the,
Hello? I don't think we're getting the sound though. Hello, hello, hello. Somebody else want to try talking?
hello? Hello, hello?
There we go.
Yes, it is.
It's delayed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 6:30 and we have much to do, so let us begin. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Durham Planning Board, Wednesday, December 4th at 6:30 PM. First thing is roll call and determination of quorum. There are 5 members present, so we have a quorum. Next step is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
I have 2 I'd like to discuss at the end of our meeting. One is the CEO monthly report, and the other is an email we received on November 14th regarding Granite Hills.
Okay. Let's put those at the end, and if we don't get to them, we should be able to, yeah. Anybody have an objection to that amendment?
No,
If not, I have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If you agree, raise your hand, please. Unanimous. Okay, that will come before we get to the, whatever we call it there. Town officials, I'm sorry, we're into acceptable meeting minutes. Anybody have any comments on last November 6th meeting? Changes recommended? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
So move, second.
Second.
Mark, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Unanimous. Informational exchange on non-agenda items. George?
You're probably all aware that on November 19th, the special town meeting adopted the moratorium on battery energy storage systems. And the select board met subsequent to that and asked the town attorney to prepare amendments to the land use ordinance to institute contract zoning as a mechanism for controlling the locations of those facilities, and asked you folks to put together the battery energy storage system performance standards, which we had been working on. So there will be no potential of an application coming before the next town meeting, at least, and that will give us time to put those regulations together. And we have scheduled a special workshop meeting for a week from tonight for you folks to look at both the standards as well as the contract zoning. And we have invited the town attorney to be here and present that part of it, the contract zoning part.
We're gonna talk more about that at the end.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably not in a lot of detail, but we'll at least get the discussion started. Anything else, George?
Nope.
Informational exchange on non-agenda, okay, residents. Anybody want to talk about anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, non-residents. Anybody want to talk about anything that's not on the agenda? Moving on to 6, continuing business. Public hearing on preliminary plan application for proposed phase 2 of Bowie Hill subdivision. Map 10, lot 38, public comment will be taken. And George, if you want to give us the staff notes and I can read the rules. Did you have anything else other than?
No, I will just summarize. as you will recall from prior public hearings on subdivision applications, pretty much the procedure is for you, John, to go over the rules, and then we would hold the public hearing, and during that public hearing, you can receive public information and give opportunities for the applicant to hear those public comments and then respond to them, and that's all part of the process. So I don't know if you want to run down through all the details.
I'm not sure it's
John.
necessary since nobody wants to talk. Do I need to officially
Well, you
open
should
it?
open it and close it just for the.
I will officially open the public hearing at 6:32. Ask one more time, anybody want to talk about Bowie Hill for a public hearing? Seeing none, I will close it at 6:33, and I won't, no need to run through the rules. So public hearing, so that takes care of 6A. 6B is substantive review of preliminary plan application for proposed Phase 2 of Bowie Hill subdivision, map 10, lot 38. And in this case, no, the public comment will not be taken. You've had your chance. George, do you want to go through staff notes?
Yes, I
We
will
can have the
I'll quickly
applicant.
summarize the notes that I prepared to brief the planning board on this application. As John indicated, we're here for a preliminary plan review of the Bowie Hill Phase 2. They're going to be extending the existing Matty Lane approximately 1,100 feet. They are continuing to use a cluster approach to this subdivision layout, which would allow them to have 1 acre lots with, or larger, with 150 feet of road frontage rather than 300 as the standard. Each of the wells, each of the lots will be served by private wells and septic systems. And the applicant did update the fees, not on the application, but they have paid the full application fees that were increased by the select board back in July. And they've also provided the peer review escrow for you to get consultations on the engineering or any other technical matters that you see in this review. They do have soil tests for each of the lots showing that they passed the main plumbing code, including the lot out on Bowie Hill Road. They've also provided evidence of well yields in the area, and pretty much what you typically look for. If there's an area where they're having trouble getting well water, then that would be something to look into. There are not any documented problems with getting groundwater for well purposes in this area. They have shown well exclusion zones for each of the lots. No well can be within 100 feet of the septic systems. And when you do a cluster lot, working with a smaller lot, that obviously makes things tighter. And so I did point out in my notes that for Phase 2, and that's actually Phase 1 up there now. Let me see if I can get, there's Phase 2. So when you put in those well exclusion zones, they take up about 3/4 of the lot. So one of the issues would be where would the wells be located? The septic systems are on the front of the lots. That means that the wells are going to have to be on the back of the lots in areas that were designated as remain vegetation. So I just think that the consultant didn't really correlate everything on those, and that's not atypical, but we have indicated the need to clarify what portions of the lots will be cleared and what portions of the lot will be remain buffers and vegetated areas. And that can be done on the final plan. As is required, there will be a couple of stormwater treatment areas in this subdivision, and they will need to have easements so that the homeowners association can go on to the private lots as opposed to where if they were located in common areas. And so the final plan again should show those easements for access to the stormwater treatment areas. The applicant has requested, as part of this updated application, a waiver of the requirement for on-site water protection, and your packet does include a memo from the fire chief indicating that if all the homes are sprinklered, he's okay with waiving the requirement for the fire pond. and the form for doing that is in your packet. You can review it. It would be under the performance standards sections of the waiver, as opposed to the submissions or procedure. This project will require a site location permit. They've now exceeded the DEP thresholds and will have to go to DEP for that. That's typically done after preliminary approval, and any changes that DEP required that don't substantially change the layout or the plan. They might look at some of the details on the stormwater treatment, those sorts of things. But once they have that site location permit, that would be one of the state reviews that they would submit with their final plan application. This project is within the watershed of Runaround Pond, and if you're in the watershed of a great pond, under Maine law and our ordinance, you have to do a phosphorus management plan, which looks at how much phosphorus will be coming from the paved areas, the roofs and all of that, flowing toward, in runoff toward Runaround Pond, where it has effects of causing algae growth. This is quite a distance. It's in the upper reaches of the watershed, so I don't think it's an issue, and most of the flow from this will go into wetland areas, but their analysis should show how much is going to be generated by the subdivision and then how much is needed to attenuate that, which can probably be done with just vegetative buffers. But that's an analysis that the engineer will have to do. And I have prepared conditions of approval, and as we've kind of this new approach we've done over the last few years, the preliminary plan review, if everything looks okay in terms of the standards, what we do is typically they have conditions of approval that kind of check off all of the boxes so that overall it looks like it meets the standards, but you'll get into the findings and the detailed documentation of everything for the record at your final plan review. So we'll have an opportunity to process everything, prepare draft findings, and then that'll be part of the final plan review process as well. So that's where we are.
Okay. I don't mind to be rude, but if you would eat your dinner, there's a little kitchenette area next door.
All done.
Thank you. Okay. So applicant, if you would care to address the project in your comments?
My name's Jonathan Lobozo. I'm part of the development team. Charlie Burnham's our civil engineer. I think everything is a good description of what we've done and what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay. You're good to go? Anything else? You did, the applicant did provide an additional exhibit here that they've handed out just before that, George. I think you got a copy of it, and it looks like the standalone lot. You want to give us just a little bit of information on that?
Yeah, I believe he had requested, we were talking about that, right? To see the setbacks from the existing driveways and then a site distance coming out of that.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a private road per se, but
The drive, okay.
yeah, just a driveway.
I did, yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
You have to go for a driveway permit
Yep.
as well, but I just wanted to see
Yeah, it helps.
how this aligns with other driveways right across the way.
Easy enough.
That's quite helpful. Thank you for addressing
Yeah.
that.
Okay. I guess we will then address the waiver first. And they have requested a waiver of the standard that requires a fire pond. And your section 1, in fact, is using sprinklers, no fire pond, if I'm not mistaken. So this is phase 2, an extension of that. The Durham Fire Chief has said he is okay with that. But any discussion from the planning board? Seeing none, I will take a motion to approve the waiver.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing,
It's basically a precedent that we've already set for other subdivisions.
there's other effect of this
So
subdivision.
it's really, it's nothing new, as if people are questioning that.
Good point. Anything other discussion? Seeing none, if you are in favor, please raise a hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It passes 5-0. that. We've done the waiver. And so as George said, he did a very good review of the plans. But if there's any board comments, questions on his review, or if there's anything additional that you found the board found as they were reviewing it.
I would like to talk about the.
You used your question.
Sorry, is it okay if I? Shush. Groundwater yield. So, I'm just trying to understand, is it Marquette? Marcotte, did he draft this domestic water well inventory map? Judging by the report, he says, that pretty much there should be enough. But just looking at, did you all look at the data points here? You've got 0 gallons per minute, 0 gallons per minute, 1 gallon per minute, 2 gallons per minute, like nearby.
Per
Like-
minute?
Yeah, GPM, right? Isn't that what that means?
Well, of the 8 wells you've drilled.
Yeah, we.
Oh, you've already drilled wells?
Well, they've got
Well,
the first
we-
13 lots.
Yeah, so what do you have
Yeah,
there?
there's been no issues. It's ranged from 8 gallons per minute to 3 gallons.
To 3? Okay. Okay, yeah, that was just, generally, I saw the report and he says there's, he's the geologist, so I just wanted to say, okay, good, thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, phosphorus management process. So what is that gonna look like? The review of that?
You want me?
Or no, kind of George. I
Well,
think,
yes, but you also have done something with phase 1, so.
or anybody.
I would let the applicant
Okay,
address that.
okay.
So what are you doing in phase 1?
Phase 1, we're using those stormwater treatment plans and the forested buffers. Well, we don't actually have forested buffer on the backside of that. We caught enough of it in the ponds, and that ridge, the road is the dividing line between the aquifers. There's actually 3 aquifers that we drain to. We go north, well, I guess that's west, north, and south is Runaround Pond. So we caught most of it, sent it to a pond on the west side of that road, which sends most of the runoff away from Runaround Pond. This next side, those ponds will also treat it from a phosphorus standpoint. Any part of the yards that we don't catch, George is right in that we'll throw a forested buffer along the back sides of these properties, and that will, it's a pretty, it coincides with your stormwater treatment. What you do from a quality standpoint for stormwater generally takes care of your phosphorus as well. The forested buffers will give us that little extra edge on the runaround side, but it's a pretty, the DEP has to approve it as well.
Yeah,
It
okay.
goes through them, if that helps.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
if that's really your question, is that it is.
Yeah, it was kind
it's
of,
part
that
of
was
the
kind of
DEP
it, like,
approval
what's the process there?
You
It's-
guys have adopted their standard, but when I go to them with our
Yeah.
site law, they'll also look at that.
So what did we do last time? They reviewed, approved, and then we review and approve?
They didn't go to DEP last time.
Oh, right,
I
you
think,
didn't.
Because they
Okay.
haven't triggered the site DEP.
But I still
Right.
included a phosphorus control plan that
Yes.
meets the DEP standards,
Okay.
So that,
allegedly.
once that plan is in place, how is it monitored?
Same way the stormwater management plan is, the maintenance on those stormwater devices still has to be. So every stormwater treatment device I put in there is also the phosphorus treatment. And those have a maintenance schedule and in the back end of that report, there's a post-construction maintenance plan that they have to adhere to, and
And the HOA is responsible for doing, as the developer's done, moved out,
Yeah.
the HOA picks up the responsibility.
And I like to include them off the backs of the property, so if they're not even on somebody's property, they can't cut them anyways. So if we can get forested buffers, which this place is perfect for. Because again, it's only this east side that drains to it, so I've got all that space on the east side to forested buffer. And I wish I'd let us count the wetlands that it drains to, because that's some pretty solid treatment as well.
Any other questions?
I missed the last meeting, so I apologize. Did you all talk about, like, vernal pools and things like that already?
0 wetland impacts.
Zero
Yeah,
wetland
this next phase, we don't
impacts.
touch anything.
Oh, wow, okay,
We're
even
through
with
it.
your stormwater,
Yep.
thingamajigs?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, we're right along the top edge of those ones, so we're close to them, but we dumped out the outside. I think from a lot impact standpoint, lot 26 might touch that finger when they put a driveway through, but
Yeah,
Okay.
the development itself the road, zero wetland beds.
Okay, okay. Okay, that's it for now, John, thank you.
Okay.
Are we going through the entire application right now? Is it the preliminary?
Preliminary, yes. I mean,
So there were some comments I made last month that hadn't been picked up, and I apologize for not mentioning that during the meeting minutes portion, but you still mentioned Deer Creek Crossing, you still mentioned Cumberland County instead of Androscoggin County on your deeds. And there's, again, typo kind of stuff, but I hope it's resolved by the final application. Map unit descriptions, there's the last sentence here that just kind of fades off. I don't know.
Yeah,
what that means. Yeah, just,
Yeah, the clerical errors will
yeah,
make sure we have
I
that.
hope so. Thank you.
anything else, Brian?
Thank you. I'm all set.
Going to my left?
I'm all set.
Okay. I have two actually from the Public Works Director that he wanted to make sure followed up on. One is on this drawing that you just presented, that driveway, you annotate the line of sight right at Bowie Hill. So and maybe you've done that?
Yep.
Okay, I see the 870 and 80, okay.
I'll get that to them. That'll be part of
Okay.
the final package for sure.
And I was gonna say, this is final plan stuff. The other one he's concerned is, we've had problems in other subdivisions that, when you're leaving the main Matty Lane and you're going through a drive, he'd like to see a detail on your final plan of what that crossing looks like. Is there a culvert under there? Where's the water going? I think is his concern, because we've apparently had that. He didn't mention your subdivision as an issue, but in other subdivisions, we started having problems with that, getting clogged up, flowing out on the main drag. And so, on the final plan, if you would put those two, you've got it on one, if you put that second one on each of your driveway crossings.
Actually, can I just talk on that note real quick? Are you proposing culverts?
Each
under
driveway will have to have one, yeah.
Each one?
Yep.
Okay, and then under the main road as well?
There's already one there.
Okay,
There won't be anything after me across or anything, because I got a pond on either side.
yeah,
So both ditches will come down and
It'll
go into
go
the
down, it
ponds,
won't
there's
go-
nothing crossing
yeah,
under.
okay.
Should be nice.
You said it's already there. Do you mean for the
I meant the
existing or the
existing,
new one?
not meant the existing, that big crossing at the
But the
front.
new one will have one?
Won't
as
have
well?
any.
Okay.
Won't have any.
Well,
Well, Calvin's, I'm assuming Calvin's referring to the beginning of Matty Lane and making sure that we have an adequate culvert, which we've already installed, obviously.
Yeah,
yeah, right there.
But the, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
We've already been past that.
Yeah, right.
But the new one, the lot, whatever.
Oh,
lot
lot
this is.
26's driveway will
Yeah.
also have to have a culvert, yeah.
Okay.
And I'll include, actually, that's a good point, because I think our driveways have a 15-inch culvert noted, maybe it's 18, but I think it's 15 is your minimum. But that driveway will probably need a bigger one to match what's above it. That's
Right, because the slope
Yeah,
goes
it's a big, it's a
right down
big, it's a
there.
big ditch there, so.
Yeah, and just to be clear, his comments were the road that you just presented, the
Yes,
driveway. that-
okay.
So culvert there,
Yep.
and each of the other 13 lots. The
Yes.
driveway, you've got a drainage ditch parallel, running along Matty Lane. He wants a detail on how you're going to cross that, what water transportation culvert or whatever you're doing there.
Okay, yeah.
So just-
So every driveway has a culvert, and that was my fault. You're talking about the auxiliary lot, the satellite lot,
Yep.
having a culvert, big enough culvert there. Yep.
Also,
To deal with that,
yeah.
And it's just a detail for each driveway, not
Yeah.
each driveway drawn on the map.
Yeah.
Okay, were my comments,
I've got two more.
okay?
Real quick, existing stone wall, I think we talked about in the field, relocating, that, it looks like there's just really one, right? One long one. And then the peer review, so we're gonna do that, required ahead of final, is that what?
I recommend that the applicant go to Goral Palmer with their final plan application, have Goral Palmer review the engineering, and come in with the sign off by the peer reviewer. It'll make the final plan review go much quicker.
Okay.
Is there
So they work directly with Goral Palmer versus us?
No, they would just submit their plans to us.
Okay.
Provide
We
a
would
copy to
work with
Goral
Goral.
Palmer. We will ask Goral Palmer to do the review. And then hopefully the applicant can submit the package, and we will have Goral Palmer's comments on it at the same time, as opposed to they submit it, you table it, we send it to Goral Palmer, it comes back, they talk to Goral Palmer, they make changes, and it will expedite the process if they work everything out with Goral Palmer in advance of coming back for the final plan meeting.
With you copied?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Everyone's okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Going around one more time. Okay, so George has put together the draft conditions of approval, assuming that's what we want to do on this thing. There are a couple of things that I would like to add that, George, I'm not sure that I've seen in here. One is I would like to, if we approve it, make a comment that when they submit the final plan, it will have technical typo questions that Mr. Lenoir has brought up before, that those be taken care of. Okay, so let's make sure that is all done before it comes back in. Brian, you okay with that?
Thank you.
The other one is there will be a detail on, this is the final plan, for the culverts underneath driveways, and the one on the lot, I'm not sure what that is, lot 13, but that will also be taken care of, and you'll transfer the line of sight distances to the final plan. Are there any other things that we want to, I don't know where to add those, George, and which number here, if they're separate numbers, or we can just make it a line.
I think they would go on, we'll add it as I can either incorporate it at appropriate places, or we can just add those at the end.
I leave that to your wisdom and judgment, and
I will
as
make
long
sure
as
that
it's
they're
on.
incorporated.
Excellent.
So the three were the correcting all typos, details on the driveway culverts, and then the adding the site distances.
That's it, I believe. Okay, are there any other additions, deletions to the draft that the town planner has prepared? If not, do I have a motion to approve or disapprove?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand if you vote yes. It is unanimous, and you are done until final plan. Now, please, please, you know what I'm gonna say, please come in with everything. All the DEP approvals, all that crap, because just before you bring it back to us, make sure all that stuff is there. Thank you all very kindly. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the agenda. Okay, so substantive review is done. Next is a maintenance agreement review for Cranberry Drive off Swamp Road, map 4, lot 103B. Public comment will not be taken. Mr. Thabarge, you want to go over your notes?
Yes, the applicants are requesting a maintenance agreement for Cranberry Drive, which is also in some documents labeled Cranberry Lane. There is a series, it serves a series of family backlots that started, I guess, back in 1999, according to the deeds, and the most recent one was created this year in 2024. And under section 5.23 of the land use ordinance that was added back in 2004, any of these backlot easements, especially the ones serving multiple lots, are required to have a recorded easement for the maintenance of those, and that has to be reviewed and approved by the planning board, which is why they're before you tonight. So some of these lots may have been exempt from that because they occurred prior to 2004, but after 2004, if they added any new lots, these requirements kicked in. Those requirements of the ordinance are that the maintenance agreement has to include a statement of ownership of the right-of-way, that all parties to it have to be part of the maintenance agreement, a statement that the town is not responsible for that, maintenance and will not be requirement that all future owners, this will pass with the deeds for those lots. And that if there are other existing, so say some of those lots that occurred before the ordinance went into effect, they're required to make an offer for those prior owners to participate, but they're not required to. But they have to give documentation that they have made the offer and it was refused. And one of the sticking points on this application that I did point out is that the ordinance requires that it's not really an association, but all of the parties to the maintenance agreement have the authority legally to file a lien on any of the lot owners that don't pay their share of the maintenance costs. And the applicant was provided a template from a subdivision, or excuse me, a similar family development. It's called James Place, where the planning board did approve a maintenance agreement. Unfortunately, that was before I started working with the board, and it didn't really require that lien provision, but that is in the ordinance, which I do not think you have the authority to waive. So that's one issue, hopefully to be resolved tonight. It does require that the maintenance agreement be recorded, and it directs that the code officer can't issue any building permits for any of the lots that are being created until that maintenance agreement is recorded after approval by the planning board. The applicants submitted the application as well as the maintenance agreement that they've already agreed to, and as I said, they used the James Place as a template, which was not correct. And as I did, the only issue I see in the maintenance agreement is that lack of a lien provision.
Okay, I'm sorry, the applicants, if 1, 2, or 3 of you would like to come up and represent, please.
You know more about this situation.
I let the others escape. Please give your names and address. Speak into the microphone.
Tyler Larochelle, 30 Cranberry Lane.
Jennifer Larochelle, 30 Cranberry Lane.
Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to add to Mr. Thabarge's comments? Okay, then I will take comments from the planning board members, and I would start with this, one of my questions. Is it Cranberry Drive or is it Cranberry Lane?
The sign at the end of our driveway says Cranberry Lane. When we get our tax bills, it says Cranberry Drive. So that's why I used both, because I wasn't sure which one.
What is identified on a deed?
Either the deed or
deed's
the
here.
town road.
Yeah, the
road
deed would be the,
closest to legal.
yeah, I would think so.
Town also has a street, street list map, whatever.
Not quite sure we had all the copies of it. And hopefully we don't have any conflict within the town.
Other cranberries.
Well, it's true, because I know one other subdivision was gonna use Cranberry, and they said, wait a minute, we already have one, we can't use another one, because if you're looking for
On his
Fire
deed, it says
access.
Drive.
So drive.
So one of them says drive.
Hopefully they all say drive.
I hope so.
I have an idea that I will, an idea I have is the town has a street map, street name map or street, whatever they are. We could use that as the official as well, although I'm fine with accepting drive and moving on.
Well, usually the tax bill represents what's on a deed.
Yep.
But Exhibit A says Lane.
So
What's that from?
This is, we gave him land last
Yeah.
spring, but
Oh.
this is his deed.
Oh,
And it was recorded as Cranberry Lane, beginning at a point, eastern side of Cranberry Lane.
does it turn? Is one part of it drive and another part of it?
It's
Yeah.
just all one.
Okay, well,
One
with
deed
pod,
that says lane and one deed that
Well,
says drive?
On the first page of his warranty deed, it says, whose mailing address is 30 Cranberry Drive. And then on the first page of his Exhibit A, it says Lane.
Interesting.
And then it says thence running southeasterly perpendicular to Cranberry Drive.
So I think it's,
You're right.
I think there's, yeah,
Maybe two.
I think there are two. I think maybe at that intersection, it turns into one or the other.
Do they reference lot numbers to see where we can figure out where it may change?
Well, we had to name it when we built because it's our driveway and it was so long, it needed to have a name.
Here's
So
a thought
we're the ones
that I
have-
think would hopefully cover the issue, because the easement, the maintenance agreement has covered both. Correct, right? Drive and lane?
Yes.
So instead of drive/lane, we make it drive and lane or lane and drive. So this is for Cranberry Drive and lane. Okay. I'm on a roll today. Okay. So one of the changes we're gonna ask you to make is drive and lane, wherever that is. Because it sounds like there's two, and we'll go from there. Okay, that's my first comment. Anybody else have any others?
One question I have, knowing that our road maintenance ordinance has been changing throughout the years, where we get into the third house, I know these houses have been built prior to those changes on the ordinance, where the road had to be 50 feet wide and paved. But I don't think that meets any of those requirements now.
Okay, so that only applies in subdivisions, and you can have a subdivision that goes through all the review process, say it weren't family members, and if they had 4 lots, the whole road would have to be paved. They could have 3 lots with a gravel road, and that's the limit. So that provision was not properly applied in the past.
Right.
They let the first 3 lots of the road be gravel and then paved after that. That's not the intent of the ordinance. So that's the only change, has been the way that that's been applied. And it does not apply to these backlot easements.
So if any of these backlots were subdivided in the future,
As long as they're exempt from legal subdivision review, they can keep that road gravel.
okay?
So I think what he said is you don't have to pave it, but unless you come in with a subdivision. If you want to come in with a subdivision and do,
Not that I saw, no,
okay. Never say never. Okay, so we're good on that?
Yeah, I am. It's just one of those things that I wanted clarified, because there are publics that come out and they question, how did this happen, and how come they don't have to pave their road? We know.
And we
We know
do
why.
get that question. Mark, you have anything?
George, can you explain about the concern with the
Lien?
The lien?
situation?
Well, it's very simple. You have, and this is a family, apparently they have very good relations and have maintained the road, but there are family feuds, and there was a lawsuit in this town just up the road with a similar, or actually it's up the road from the subdivision that you're gonna be reviewing in a minute. And the town got embroiled in a lawsuit over the use of the private way. And so the intent is to have this be maintained and monitored and enforced by the lot owners and not involve the town. So the way that you make sure that all the parties participate in the cost of that, and they get into arguments over, well, we're on the end, you should pay more. And they have to work that out. Some do have a proportional thing, but if it's all equally paid, they all have to pay. And this gives all of the lot owners, if you've got one recalcitrant lot owner who won't pay, then they have a way to deal with that without drawing the town into it. So that's how it works. And it is a requirement. In the same way the homeowners association, they have the same provision.
Okay. So that's a requirement, but it's not technically in here.
It's not in the draft or the, that they submitted, it is in the ordinance.
But there also is a statement in here that they strongly urge all property owners to make assistance to support and carry the burden of anyone unable to, or are unwilling to pay to serve according to this agreement in lieu of lien. So they are addressing it. But knowing how families can be families at times, hopefully that never happens.
I have an idea, if you're willing to accept it. And if you're not, we may or may not be willing to approve it. But, and I don't take, I'm not gonna say this lightly, but there are a couple of things that I would like to see changed in this particular paragraph. The one is easy, in my mind, the Town of Durham, Maine Planning Board requires, it's not the planning board, it's our land use ordinance. So it's not like, we just got together and said, let's make them do this. So please drop the planning board piece of that. And then the other one is, we dropped the last sentence. As Christians, we strongly urge all property owners to make assistance to support and carry the burden of anyone unable or unwilling to pay or serve according to this agreement in lieu of lien. I appreciate that. I'm sure that may or may not happen over time, but I think it dilutes or confuses the fact that you have to lien them.
Yeah, that was in the
Yeah, it was in the
template that
sample.
that we used.
That-
And
that-
actually, I had taken that part out to begin with, but there was discussion, it's a legal document that's gonna be submitted.
Right.
And we're looking at each other going, I don't wanna put a lien on you. We've been up back here for 20-some odd years. The first two houses were in the 90s, and Malkese was in beginning of 2004. So we've just been doing it, and now it's our son that's next. So,
Well, and
Yeah.
there is a road where, in Durham, where it's never been done, and some people are sucking it all down themselves, but it's a pain, filling holes and everything else. So George, let me ask you, and the planning board members, if we change it to say, the Town of Durham requires that this agreement permit property owners to place a lien on the property of a signatory who has not satisfied their share allocated to them in the amount of the unpaid assessment for the cost of maintenance for Cranberry Lane and Drive, or Drive-in Lane, just to keep it the same, the private deeded way, end of paragraph. Does that work?
It's your decision.
Does that,
Yes.
Make that a motion.
okay, so has not, for those of you who are watching, has nothing to do with religion one way or another. And I do actually sat in as an alternate when that discussion was, how that ended up long ago, so.
Can I ask a question? Where, did this template come from us?
Yeah,
So
I
we
got it
had
from
this in
Alan.
our template?
This was an approved.
Okay.
template.
They were handed, if you remember, probably 4 years ago, 3 years ago, there was a family that came in that did not want to have the lien verbiage.
Yeah.
And it was a 3 or 4 meeting
Yeah.
event
Yeah.
and then I think this was a compromise at the time, but my feeling is that
We're gonna revisit this.
it's not the right, it dilutes the language of requiring
Yeah,
the lien, so.
Okay.
If everybody's good with that, I will take a motion with, just to make sure I'm clear on this. One is we change Cranberry Drive /lane to Cranberry Drive and lane. And does that have to be then plural, the private deeded rights of way? Or just change Cranberry Drive /lane to Cranberry Drive and lane, and then wherever you see that, it be the same. So a couple of different places where it says Cranberry Drive /lane, it become Cranberry Drive and lane. There's like 6 or 7 of those.
And then get rid of the Christian.
And then, yes, please, as Christians, in lieu of lien, delete that line.
And make it the Town of Durham.
And, yes, thank you, and delete the words planning board.
Yeah.
I'll amend the motion to include those two.
Second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No, the only question is, once this has been changed, okay, this will be registered in the Enniscorn County Register of Deeds, and there'll be a book and page number assigned to it. So, okay.
Yes, you get rid of page 1 of 3, I think, and
Well, it'll be more than that. They assign the book and page once you bring it to the Androscoggin Registry of Deeds.
Okay, was there any other comments? The rest of it has to have the right day. And George, can we go forward from here saying that you have to make these changes? If you bring him back something else to the code enforcement guy, he's not going to accept it.
Correct.
Is that fair?
Yep.
So understand, so make the changes, get it registered and recorded and come back, then you're good to go.
So the one thing that I would be concerned about if I was one of the landowners, how is this maintenance agreement attached to their original book and page numbers that they have referenced within this? I don't know how that works.
To get
Many
recorded.
times you have an addendum to a deed, and it's attached to it.
I think what'll happen is whenever there's a sale going forward or a transfer going forward, that'll be part of that. It'll reference that agreement.
They'll find it through title
But
search.
I don't think they have to go back and change all their current deeds.
No, I don't either. I'm just saying, how would it be attached to it? If
Yep.
somebody's gonna go through a title search, they would pick it up then, probably.
Yep, on the next sale.
But that's a good point. How do we know that the current owners are tied to this lien?
Well, they've all signed off on it.
Okay,
The signatures are all attached.
okay.
So that alone is telling me that they agreed to it.
Sebon.
So just kind of a follow-up question to that. Everybody who's gonna be impacted this has signed? Okay. Because you have to put a legal description with it, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
So all that, does that answer the questions?
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. If we're ready for the vote, all those in favor of approving, please raise a hand. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck. Hopefully 50 years from now, your family's his kids are all paying their fees. Okay, thank you. Next is conditional use review for automotive repair shop at 1586 Royalsboro Road, map 1, lot 56. Public comment will not be taken. Mr. Dugas, if you'll step up, and go ahead and introduce yourself as well as you're doing that. And then we'll start with the town planner on his notes. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Justin Dugas, 15.
Yeah, please pull it close and talk loudly.
Justin Dugas, 1586 Royalsboro Road in Durham.
Okay. Mr. Tavares?
Yes, I will summarize the notes that I provided to the planning board. Mr. Dugas is seeking a conditional use approval for an automotive repair business at 1586 Royalsboro Road. He has been doing apparently part-time repairs in his garage, and he is now proposing to expand the business, build a new building, and now he's moved beyond what can be done as a home occupation, and he's now into the requirement for a conditional use permit. As I've explained on past applications, there's a two-stage process to this. The first is the board looks at the conditional use criteria to see if the business use of the property meets the criteria. There are some negative impacts that are intended to be controlled and avoided. The first being public health impacts, traffic safety impacts, public safety, environmental, the scale and intensity of use being compatible with surrounding uses, and finally concerns for noise and hours of operation would be other issues to look at. And the applicant has addressed those in his application. There are also some positive requirements, those being that the board has to find that the applicant has right title or interest, the applicant has provided his copy of his deed, and also that the applicant has the technical and financial ability to do the project and meet all the requirements and any conditions that you put on it. There are no standards specifically for automotive repair business in the Durham Land Use Ordinance. There are some peripheral noise limits as well as storage of hazardous containers that the applicant has pointed to in his application. So if the board determines that the applicant has met his burden of proof, you can approve the conditional use with or without conditions. And then the applicant would, if he intends to build any buildings or to expand any parking beyond 2,500 square feet, then he would come back for the second stage of review, which is the site plan, where you would look at the detailed engineering survey design site plan that the applicant would prepare for that. So this is just a general review of those criteria that I mentioned, and the packet and the website posting did include his application as well as some hand-drawn site sketches. I did include some photo renderings from Google Maps that show the frontage, what the property looks like from the front, as well as an aerial photo, which were in your packet. So you can look through the draft findings that I prepared and add any based on your discussion here tonight. You should discuss whether you see a need for a public hearing for this application, and then you can make a decision on that as well as the conditional use application.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dugas, if any comments you'd like to make?
No, sir.
Just brief description of what you're doing there.
Just automotive repair, it's mainly larger projects that, like restoration stuff, light duty welding. That's basically it,
Okay, and I read somewhere inside.
always.
Okay. Board members, comments, questions? And again, conditional use, we're just determining whether or not it's a fit use of the property. Details on setbacks and all other stuff would come, because you are gonna build a building, correct, an additional building, so you'd have to come back for site plan approval.
Okay.
For that building. So
For the
what we're
building.
doing is we're looking
Part-
at the use.
The use,
We're looking at the use right now. Right.
the use.
I'm here because I didn't realize I needed to be here, and then I saw Alan Plummer for a building. and-
Permit.
And I just mentioned it to him, he goes, oh, you need to talk to that guy, so here I am.
A multi-step process.
Yeah, that's fine, I don't want any repercussions if you guys,
So you understand it's two steps, so there'll be this, and then you gotta come, if you get conditional use approved, you've gotta come back with a,
so if conditional use approval will allow me to be where I am now, and then I have to come back for a site plan.
if you're gonna make,
Or
yeah, to make changes, parking, the
Right.
building, that's,
Right,
which it sounds like you plan to do,
yes.
okay?
Yeah, so should we go through the impacts, or if we just?
Yeah, if there are any general questions, if not, we can go through the draft conditional use approval, finding of facts and decisions. Would like-
I'd recommend going through the individual ones and address them as they come up.
The findings.
Yes.
Okay. Let us do that then. So, and you're familiar, you got a copy of the findings of facts, draft conditional use of?
So what page? is
Uh,
that?
I don't know.
Was it in the application?
Yeah.
I didn't bring
Or
it.
no.
It'll be separate.
Okay,
It's what Mr., did you send, okay?
It was posted on the website.
Okay,
that's what I used.
okay, so we'll read them, we're gonna read them anyway.
Okay.
So, no offense to you, but we're gonna read them. Okay, so I will start, project name Dugas Automotive Repair, 1586 Railsboro Road, map 1, lot 56. List of submissions, conditional use application for automotive repair business at 1586 Royalsboro Road. Section 7.4, conditional use review criteria. So the first review criteria is before it issues a conditional use permit, the planning board shall find as a matter of fact that the proposed use meets the following criteria. So public health impacts. The proposed use will not create unsanitary or unhealthful conditions by reason of sewage disposal, emissions to the air, water, or other aspects of its design or operations. We have 3 proposed finding of facts. Air emissions will not be affected as all work will be conducted, which I believe these may be yours, the things you wrote up.
Yeah.
So your recommended findings are the air emissions. There will be no bathroom at this time, so I assume you're using whatever's in the house, or
Mother Nature.
how about if we
Yes.
use what's inside the house? Yes, so does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, water runoff, this will be addressed, the grass, crushed rock, and bark mulch before it enters the natural swale, leaving my property. Trash will be disposed in my dumpster that I have on site. So, board members?
So do you said that you're looking in the future, a lot of this was in the future, you looked at expanding the garage.
Mhm.
I guess we could address that at the time, once that is presented. I was wondering whether you were going to put a bathroom in the new garage or not.
No.
Okay, answers that.
What about storage of waste, like oil and gas and things like that?
So I have currently, they use them at the fire department for FAF or whatever, or FAFF, whatever, but they're just a roll caged pallet, it's plastic with a steel roll cage with a plastic container. That's what I basically,
Inside the garage, like
they,
it's placed inside,
it's outside right now,
outside the
yes.
garage? Is it like, oh, you said pallet? Like, is there
Yes,
any other
it's-
like containment, like,
Not currently, no.
okay.
So once that container is full, how is it removed from the property to
So
properly dispose of it?
I have been taking them down to my uncle's boatyard, or boat. They have a humongous waste oil furnace, and that's where I've been getting rid of it.
Okay,
Once the building is up, I do plan to store it and have it's all gonna be inside. It's gonna have proper containment. But I plan to burn the waste oil that I gather for basically free heat, yeah.
You burn it?
Not now, but.
Yeah, but you will.
I will, yeah, in a proper, waste oil furnace, yeah.
So we would expect to see those details in the next submission.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be clear, well, if it's, or is it at the building permit?
Right.
You know, the building
No,
permit.
this is part of the use, for sure, or the next phase, this is the review of this piece of it. I just don't know, I'm with you, I don't know if we talk about it during this piece, or we talk about it during the expansion piece.
well, to me, this conditional use is for the existing building. It's not for the future building. Future building, I think we'd have to totally
But it's-
re-review.
No, this is for the future building.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, this is so that he's got to get conditional use approval to get the building, the site plan, so they get a building permit.
Correct.
So I think what we're saying is that you're gonna have to show us on your, site plan, where you plan to, store the stuff.
Okay.
So, you're gonna have if you go to Public Works, on one side, they have you pour it in there, you've
The
been.
building's got a full-length enclosed lean-to that's 12 feet out. And I'm gonna do palletized shelving, like the heavy-duty shelving they do at Home Depot for storage.
Okay,
It's gonna be in there, and then they make spill containments for those containments to sit on.
that is, I think, one of the questions that we're asking is how are you gonna handle spill containment?
And I don't plan to hold lots when it's, I don't really gather. It's been 6 years, I think I have 300 gallons
Yeah,
on
so
hand.
there
And
is a
it's- and
storage
it's
of
full,
hazardous
so I'm getting ready to
materials.
truck it out, so I don't, what's that?
There's a storage of hazardous materials section in our ordinance.
Yep,
That maybe we'll wanna look at
Mm,
when we
Okay.
get there, but yeah, it talks about
definitely.
what to place it on and size of the gallons, tanks and
yeah.
all that.
So you could make that a condition of approval, that he provide details on waste storage and disposal per section, whatever the section number is.
Yeah, 5.26, I think.
26?
5.26.
So do you guys wanna see, it's tough, I guess, because if they're inside, a spill containment area is outside of the weather. If it's outside, if it's full of rain and leaves and trash, and then it's basically no good at that point. You're basically overflowing containment if something were to happen, but. I mean-
My thought would be to task you that when you come in with your site plan,
Mhm,
that you show us that lean-to or whatever it is that you're discussing.
correct.
And then that we make it a condition of the building permit that the code enforcement officer when he sees your actual building plans, that you lay it out in that.
Right.
Well, yes, that, but also refer to this section in the ordinance, and it tells you exactly what's required.
Okay.
And maybe just speak to that in your additional write-up.
The
What
narrative.
you're doing, yeah, the narrative.
Okay.
Like, maybe not, you don't really have to show on a drawing, like, that could be hard to put on.
Right, I
paper,
mean,
but-
the spill containment that I plan to have is basically, you buy it.
Yeah.
It's basically a container that's reinforced for this to sit on.
And if you show that as a cut, like whatever,
Yes,
wherever you're
that sheet or
buying it,
something.
just
Yeah.
show that, and that's part of the record.
Yeah,
Okay.
And then for the narrative, what you have told us here probably works.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to get, long detailed,
No,
but
it's
a
designed,
picture and then just,
designed for that.
what you just described,
Yeah.
part of the narrative of the project.
Okay. So do you want me to have, like, print out proof that they exist? I mean, pictures, I mean, it's all, they're right on the internet, I think.
Yeah, I think something that says this is what I'm playing, something
Sure.
very similar to this. If you know what you're gonna buy, that's obviously even better.
I do.
Because
I've already
Amazon will
looked
tell you the dimensions and the whole 9
I've
yards.
already looked at it, yeah.
Okay,
I have,
that helps.
yeah.
And so I think, I'm sorry, but there was a comment about making it a condition of approval, and what was that again, George?
You would look for details of the waste storage and disposal per section 5.26 of the land use ordinance.
5.26?
We would add that to the findings.
And that will go on page
wherever
142 of your packet as a condition.
So that's a separate condition, that's not in any of the, okay.
Yep.
So for a finding, would we add under, I guess, either public health, air or water, will we add an E that says, something to the effect of,
Details of waste.
hazardous
storage,
waste details will be provided?
at site plan.
Okay, that's letter E.
Does this get all emailed to me?
You'll get it.
So you're not taking notes?
No,
You're gonna take
you wouldn't believe it, but my pen's out by my truck.
Also,
Oh, I got one.
it's on television. So tomorrow with a cup of coffee, you
You
can.
will get an
I can
official,
have coffee.
No, you could, no,
You'll get a
you have to buy your own
you will
coffee.
get an official notice of
Yes,
decision with the
but it's
conditions.
also on YouTube.
I'm curious about letter C under findings, water runoff. If we're not really getting into the new building, because that's when we would kind of look at that too, right?
Yes.
The building design and stuff.
Site plan.
Yeah, so maybe we either scratch that and wait, or say that this will be addressed in the site plan review or something like that.
No, I think it's okay to note it, yeah, that's his
Yeah.
intent, and that'll be part of the record.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yep.
okay.
I do have a question on the water runoff. You're running it off your building, will run it off your building into a swale that exists,
Mhm.
and then it runs into your neighbor's pond.
Yeah, I mean, it goes through a series of, ditches in the woods, I guess you could call it, a continuation of the swale. It's quite a distance, it's probably, if you measured it out, 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet before it
You
actually
can annotate that
enters.
on the site plan if you don't mind, just,
Yeah,
quick.
yeah.
But my bigger question maybe is your neighbor okay with that?
Oh, yes.
Do we need something in writing that's, if your neighbor changes, these guys get tired of hearing in Indiana, in Indiana, if there was a flow that existed,
Right.
the neighbor sucked it down.
Right.
But if he changed the flow, then the neighbor didn't have to suck it down. So I just want to make sure that down the road, you're covered, or we're covered, and the water flowing off. But,
I would say yes. I mean, we know each other really well. We're good friends. Our kids are friends. I fix all his stuff.
He gets automotive repair.
Yeah, I would hope so.
my concern is always, like when we talk to the
Yeah,
folks that were here,
right.
you
No,
know,
I
next
get it.
generation, whatever.
Right, no, I understand totally. I mean, and even so, if you were to go out in a rainstorm, it's not like it's knee deep and it's, I mean, you're gonna
Okay.
get your feet wet, but that's about the essential.
Because if it become a problem, he'll call code enforcement, and then code enforcement's, the fact that we approve it here doesn't necessarily mean it's good forever.
And if it's gonna change, it's gonna change.
Okay. Okay, okay, so with that one finding, and we'll add the 5.26 comment later on and vote on that, are we good with public health impacts?
I'll make a motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for public health impacts, which include the addition of E.
Yep, one of our findings was a resolution of the hazardous waste. And again, you'll get the verbiage. Moved and seconded, any further discussion?
Has it been seconded?
Oh, would somebody like to second it?
I'll second.
Okay, I'm looking at Mark. Okay, moved and seconded. Any additional comment? If none, please raise your hand to vote yes. 5-0. Next is, the proposed use will not create unsafe vehicular or pedestrian traffic conditions when added to existing and foreseeable traffic in its vicinity. 3 findings that you provided, draft findings. Traffic will be less than 10 vehicles per day. Customers and deliveries. DOT entrance permit is not required. Entrance of driveway will be kept up and clear for maximum visibility. Comments? From
It
board
seems to me that there must have been an entrance permit initiated for your home when the home was built.
Depends how long ago it was built.
Okay.
83.
When was it, 83?
83.
Okay.
Here's a concern I have on the entrance permit is that this came up with another project. And I don't know what DOT is gonna consider this, and you're not adding a lot. Sometimes when the use changes, they require a entrance permit. I think they changed the rules on site distance, and a whole bunch of other things, because you've gone from a house to a business.
Right. I
It's,
didn't read anything about
the
that.
threshold is 100 vehicle trips, peak hour trips.
Per day?
No, peak hour trips.
Oh,
Per
peak hour,
hour.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
peak
if you were
hour.
to change this
And you're
use,
talking about
Answer-
10 a day or
answer-
something, right?
remember
No,
the
that's-
campground
Most
didn't
I
have
ever
to
had
get
is
a
like 7.
a
Yeah.
permit.
They answered my question?
Yeah, and you are on a straightaway.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you, yeah.
My follow-on is, do we need to annotate on the site plan, site distance?
That can be on the site plan, yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about? So when you pull out of your driveway, what's the cleared vision to your right, what's the cleared vision to your left?
Footage wise,
Yep. Don't need to know it tonight, but put it on the,
yeah.
go out and measure. Are you gonna have somebody draw these site plan up for you?
Yeah, probably.
You might wanna have them just annotate. If you remember when we were talking about Bowie Hill, we talked about site
Right.
vision. And so it looks similar to this.
Without getting a laser pointer and pointing at the map here, there is a small dip in the road where you do, if you were in a lower car, you lose sight.
It depends on how many feet,
Up feet, away.
1,500, 2,000 feet, it's quite a
That's
bit.
probably not a problem, but have that guy just put it on the map.
Yep.
So
Okay.
that way, and again, it's on the state, and then you're also covered in an accident.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a service that Calvin provides or not.
I don't know if he'll do it on the highway, yeah, he might if he'll do it on the
town
state
road,
highway.
yeah.
Yeah, it's Roseboro.
Yep.
So my thought would be check with the Calvin, do you know Calvin?
Yeah, yeah.
Ask Calvin, and he might do it for you, or he might hook you up with the guy on
Okay.
NDOT.
Okay.
So, any other findings?
Oh,
I do have a finding of, D, I guess, is put,
Add site distances to the site plan.
okay, you got that one?
Yep.
Okay, so that's the finding. Any others? Seeing none, I will accept the
Are
motion.
you on D or through the whole thing?
We just went through all of it.
Okay.
Yeah, D for number 2, traffic safety impacts.
Yeah.
We
I'm sorry,
added
I say
that
something. Yeah,
fourth one.
just, the finding is that it needs a site plan distance, and George has better language, I think. Were there any other findings that we want to discuss or comments on traffic safety?
On H regarding financial and technical ability.
Oh, we're still up
let's
on
go-
traffic
yeah,
safety.
let's
We have to vote on traffic.
Oh.
I was joking, we have not gone through all of them, just the 2.
Both of them.
I'm good.
So, I've lost track. I need a motion, I think.
I'll make that motion.
Mike's gonna make, oh,
Julia
That
can
the
make it.
applicant is satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for traffic safety impacts.
With findings A through D.
Yes, with findings A through D, the D is
Need site.
adding,
Site distance.
yep, site distance.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. So we have a ways to go. Public safety impacts. The proposed use will not create public safety problems which would be substantially different from those created by existing uses in the neighborhood or require a substantially greater degree of municipal service than existing uses in the neighborhood. There are findings A, there are several local businesses around me, logging, excavation, campgrounds, firewood, processing, farming, horse boarding, construction companies, carpet cleaning, etc. My business is a very low profit business, and I think your drawing, you hand wrote where the horses were and where everything was.
Yeah, kinda, yeah, from a, I think a GSI map roughly.
Okay. Bi-weekly, my dumpster gets emptied, this is B, bi-weekly, my dumpster gets emptied, and during the week, I have less than 10 customers' deliveries per day. My project will not require a substantially greater degree of municipal services than the surrounding businesses. Any other comments, questions from board members? Okay, seeing none, I will accept a motion.
I'll make the motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for public safety impacts.
Second, please.
second?
Okay, please raise your hand if you vote to approve. 5-0. Next one is number 4, environmental impacts. The proposed use will not result in sedimentation, erosion, or have adverse effect on water supplies. Findings, you do plan on removing trees for this project.
So it's good to know that, but I don't know if one that should be included like that.
Can we finish, let me finish reading.
Oh, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
let me just go through,
Yeah.
because the others may be the same question. There's also a natural swale where the water gathers and leaves my property and enters my neighbor's pond. C, I plan to control flow through crushed stone, bark, mulch, grass on the whole project. D, all my work will be conducted indoors, all my automotive fluids will be contained and stored properly and disposed of, and the property will always be clean, organized, and well-maintained. Juliet.
Yeah, so I don't know about A being in here like that. Knowing that you're removing trees is important, but I'm not sure if that's a finding per se.
Okay.
Unless we say something, I plan on removing trees and replacing them somewhere else or something else
I
like
just
that,
wrote
right?
that obviously because, sorry, I just wrote that because I feel like the watershed from a roof is much more substantial than, the trees. Rain hits the leaves and it kind of splashes and it disperses, but it's gonna be more focused coming off a roof line.
Oh, I see.
So you're concerned about the sedimentation erosion.
Well, and I figured it was just, you know, being honest, it's gonna wash off that roof and it's gonna make its own.
I hear what you're saying. Is it kind of wet back there right now?
No, not at all.
Oh, you were saying you're walking through like.
So the swale kind of goes like maybe 300 feet from the road, and it like goes back to the back, and I can point to it.
Here's a
from
pointer.
here, but
Press that center right button.
so this, my main lawn for the house is here, and when we get a really substantial amount of rain, because there's a hill here between me and this field.
I thought that was their house.
So, anyway,
Okay.
the water runs towards my patio here, but it stops in the swale and it makes its way like this. And it goes right over to that pond.
Do we need a wetland delineation on this site? If it's gonna be an auto, like, if it's gonna be a, you know,
Is a handmade, hand-dug, man-made pond a wetland?
It's not on your property, is it?
Yeah.
So-
You're talking about your neighbor, correct?
Correct.
oh, no. No, I'm just curious if any of that is a wetland. And if your proposed use is an expanded auto garage, everything is gonna be indoors, which is great. I just wonder,
The site plan review does have the list of submissions that are required, and they'll have to indicate whether they want a waiver of that requirement based on the lack of wetlands, or that they need it, so. It is one of the requirements for site plan review.
Okay.
And you can find that in the
Map any
GIS.
wetlands around the
Well, you've
property.
got wetlands.
Yeah, I've seen that. There's not a wetland in that.
Throw a copy of that page. And then you will show us, you should kind of show us on your hand sketch, but you'll show us on your fancier sketch where that's gonna go.
Okay.
And how much, I'm asking, how much you're gonna tear up. My guess is you're tearing up what's already potentially developed next to
It's
it.
very minimal. It's basically, let's see, that's the garage that I'm in now, and this is basically a cleared parking area, which was where I used to split wood. But this little knoll right here,
Is where it's gonna go.
is where I'd like it to be, yeah.
Okay. Well, you'll submit the site plan saying that. And then, like I said, the picture of the GIS, whether there's wetlands or something there,
Okay.
you know, that we can make a decision whether it's needed or not.
and you're gonna have an engineer look at this and maybe draft up some sort of like swale or, like a French drain or something
Sure.
to push the water where you want it to go.
Yeah, and
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna be, so the building's gonna be kind of down in a hill, because where it's going is uphill, so I was gonna just, you know, flatten it out, but the gable end's gonna be facing my existing dirt parking area, so it's gonna shed off and then probably run into the parking area and then out the
Yeah.
same way that it flows currently.
I think going to the erosion, you're concerned about removing trees, which is commendable. So how are you gonna mitigate that? So it comes off the roof, you're gonna have stone, or you're gonna have mulch, something there to,
All of it.
yeah, so, you know, just, that mitigates,
Mhm.
you know, the finding is that there is a concern, and we may make a condition that you mitigate that. And you've already discussed it, I think, so I don't know. that-
So in the back of the building too will also be higher, it sounds funny, but it'll be higher on the hill. And I could do, we could do gutters and push all the rainwater off, because once it goes down that hill, there's a culvert through the woods and a stream that runs that way too.
Just kind of show it and, you know,
Yeah,
have the guy just,
right,
if you're gonna use gutters, if you're gonna have a downspout,
right.
if you're gonna have stone at the end of the, you know, just stone, some little stone path to
Right,
the,
right,
to
right.
the natural swale or whatever.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody? That kind of eliminates the concern you brought up. Hold on to it, you may need it again.
That's right here.
Okay, so, I don't know that there was a new finding in that.
I don't think there was.
So I will take and I think, but there is maybe a condition that you show how you're gonna handle runoff from the roof as a condition.
Right, and that's why I was explaining it. I feel like landscaping and crushed rock and mulch, I plan to, you know, grass the area and however you gotta do flow control.
Well, natural's better than piping it somewhere.
Yeah, I
My
want it to
opinion,
be,
for what it's worth.
yeah.
Okay, so do I have a motion with the findings A through E as listed here? Seeing none, I will make a motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for environmental impacts. A second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, please raise a hand to approve. 5-0. Okay, next is scale and intensity of use. The proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to physical size, visual impact, intensity of use, and proximity to other structures. Findings presented by the applicant. There are several local businesses around me: logging, excavation, campgrounds, fire processing, farming, horseboarding, construction companies, carpet cleaning, etc. This project will be non-visible to any of them. As far as my neighbors go, this project will be tucked back in the woods, and I will be leaving enough vegetation with my backs, which will leave a heavy wooded surrounding. When the project is completed, I will then be doing landscaping to help as well. Okay, so vegetate with what's the back?
Typo maybe.
With my,
Okay,
What page is that?
it's, you're finding its scale of intensity of use, number C. Enough vegetation with my backs, which will leave a heavily,
I think you meant on the back of the property.
yeah, I think so.
how about okay. Okay, so we got it. All right, are there any other discussion from board members about scale and intensity of use?
How tall is this garage expected to be?
I was going to plan to have, it's not, so I have drawings done now, and the building is 52 by 52. And then the lean-to is 12 feet out towards my main lawn for my, you know, my private yard. But I don't know, without having, all I have is drawings of dimensions as the square footage, but I don't have heights. I think the ceilings are gonna be 18 feet.
What's your main residence? Is that a two-story family, two-story house?
Yes, yeah.
And it's pretty much hidden by Royalsboro, like, from Royalsboro, I mean. And then your other neighbors, can they even see your house?
I
Can
mean,
they
this
say?
time of year, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the summertime, it's pretty private, other than the new trees I planted on the side of the road up there. But they're still in growth.
What are there's 2 or 3 box-like structures, buildings, whatever, close to where you plan to build this. What are they?
In that left corner.
To the left, my right of the.
That white thing is my boat,
Okay,
yeah, and then I have one of those zip-up tent
Okay.
things.
I don't know, I don't see, it doesn't seem to me this is way back there.
Would we want to require buffering if needed? I'm not saying it's needed, but if it's needed, would we want neighbors?
How do we determine
I
if
mean, the
it's?
face of my personal garage currently is 200 feet from the road. And that's gonna be another 200 feet.
Yeah, I'm not worried about 1450, I mean, that's my address. I'm not worried about Royalsboro. I'm just wondering about, like, depending on how many trees you cut down.
Yeah, that's where scale comes into play. Like,
Mhm.
what is the scale of this thing compared to everything that's around you? And what
Right.
your neighbors will see.
Right,
It'd be good to know that.
right.
Could you know that before you come in with the height, I think is the
Sure.
question.
Sure,
The height of the building,
yeah,
Site plan requires building elevations.
there we go.
yeah. I just, the only reason that it's still in drawing stages now is because I didn't know I had to do this.
Okay,
So anyway, before I finalized blueprints, I was working with a company for design layout for shop equipment.
okay.
But I don't want to change the drawings once they're blueprints. It's not cost effective, so. But I
Okay.
can find that out, I can call Hancock Lumber.
I think, yes, and if it's required at the next step, then I don't think we even need to make it a condition, just, you're gonna have to do it anyway. So you give us a site plan, that shows where it is, distance to the property lines,
Got it?
and then the height of the building, and we
Yeah.
can kind of figure out from there is that good enough, the next step? Okay, any other comments about scale and intensity of use? Seeing none, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for scale and intensity of use.
Second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise your hand if you vote to approve. 5-0. Next is noise and hours of operation. The proposed use will be compatible with existing uses in the neighborhood with respect to the generation of noise and hours of operation. Findings, I am open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's not going to change. He note that the applicant should have said no. All work will be conducted indoors, so noise will be very minimal. Do we have any other,
Can I ask, are you using, like compressors or any like sort of, like often?
I mean, I very rarely use air unless I do tires.
Yeah.
Because everything's
Or-
battery operated, so
Okay, or generators or anything like that?
not unless I lose power at my primary residence.
So in other words, often? Just
Yeah,
kidding.
no.
Okay,
No.
all right,
And all that equipment, if I had it, would be inside.
yeah.
and just to note, our ordinance does have limits on noise that escapes
yeah.
your property line, so
Yeah.
that becomes the deciding factor, so. Okay, are there anything on noise and hours of operation? A motion, please.
I'll make the motion. The applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for noise and hours of operation.
Second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If you will vote to approve, please raise your A hand. 5-0. Right title or interest, we're on to number 7, right title or interest. The applicant has sufficient right title or interest in the site of the proposed use to be able to carry out the proposed use. Findings, the applicant submitted a warranty deed documenting ownership of the property. Any comments from planning board members on right title or interest? Seeing none,
Move
can
that
I
the
get a motion?
applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for right title or interest.
Second.
Mark, you get to second this one. If you vote to approve, please raise a hand. Are there any further discussion? Seeing none, raise a hand to vote.
I have a question. I mean, I'll vote, let's vote. I vote.
If you gotta vote about the deed, let's
Well, yeah,
ask.
so is there a CMP line running through? Is there any
There
sort
is,
of,
yeah.
anywhere near?
There's nothing currently past my home.
Okay.
It's just from the main road to the roadside of my home.
Oh, just like a line, just like
Yeah.
your line?
A private
Like,
line.
yeah, your
Yes.
private line, no, no,
Nothing.
yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay, let's go back to a vote. Raise your hand to vote to approve. 5-0. Number 8, financial and technical ability. The applicant has the financial and technical ability to meet the standards of this section and to comply with any conditions imposed by the planning board pursuant to subsection 7.5. Findings, estimated project cost $150,000. B is I went to school to learn auto mechanics on automobile and heavy trucks. C, I was an engineer in the oil field for 20 years as well, and in my off time running my little business fixing cars. So I think Mr. Lenoir would like to discuss this.
Oh, yeah,
We'll start
what is
with
the
you.
150, thank you for remembering that. Sorry that I was off.
That's
track
okay.
there. What does 150K represent?
The building to be weather tight on a foundation.
So no other site improvements, no, you talk about.
This is just the building
Just the
itself.
building itself.
Now, whenever someone's given us a financial estimate, we've always had an estimate for a financial institution that those monies are available.
Okay. You want to see my bank account?
I know, no,
I think- I think
we
what
just
we-
ask
I'm doing
for
it
a
out of
letter.
pocket.
Yeah, what we got in the past is some kind of statement from a bank
Yeah.
that says, Mr. Dugas or whatever company Dugas Auto has the financial, is up to 200,000, which the 150 gets you the shell insulated. What about lifts? I mean, I assume you've got like tools and all that stuff, but
Right.
are you talked about putting a pit in, are you gonna put a lift in, or just
Lifts.
lifts? No lifts.
Lifts, no pit. No pit.
No pit, so you're gonna use lifts, no pit.
So yeah, this financial total should include everything, I think, for the project, right?
Yes, that's what I'm leading
Is
to.
a building ever done?
What's that?
Is a building ever done?
No, it's
Well,
Do you ever have enough room?
I would,
No.
We're
You're
all
gonna come
laughing
in with-
because we know what you're talking
you're
about.
gonna come in with the site plan, so I think
Right.
and you're gonna want, so if a bank, if somebody could say,
Okay.
Dugas Automotive has the capability for, I don't know what a lift costs, $200,000 building,
Whatever.
160,000, whatever, you know what I'm
I was
saying?
pricing them out, but yeah, no. And I plan to start with one until, I'm rolling in there and things are turning. I'm not gonna outfit it and go broke watching things not work.
Okay.
Right.
That is also a requirement for site plan review, financial capacity, so.
So how do we word a motion that says the applicant is satisfied, or will satisfy at site plan
Yeah.
That's
application?
right.
Yeah.
Estimated project cost $150,000 will be supported with a financial institution's letter.
I'm waiting for a motion.
I'm
Second
not
one.
sure the 150 covers the full project costs.
Well, that's what he's saying, so I don't, to
Let's
what
just say-
extent do you
It's just the
open?
shell of the building.
Well, what do you think does, 160?
I don't know. I'm not a
How about let's just say
contractor.
financial-
I got estimates on material and I got estimates on having the site work and the tree work done and then the building material costs.
Okay, well, that's,
I was really planning on, framing it myself and doing everything I can do, to meet code. And when I get stuck, hire someone to come in and take over, just to
Yep.
try to keep the budget at a minimal.
can we modify the motion to say the applicant will provide proof of compliance, will provide, what's the term I'm trying to think of? Will provide financial details at time of site plan.
Site
Site
plan,
plan.
yeah,
Is that what you were saying?
proof and
Roughly.
estimate,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, so I'll go with, so we have a motion from
Subject to
Alan.
interpretation.
I'm going easy. We have a motion, do we have a second?
May I give the motion?
Haven't had a motion yet,
Okay,
did we?
would you like to make a motion?
Well, I want, included in the motion will expand item A to include a financial institution's letter of support,
And possibly the updated estimate, right?
whatever.
The only reason I haven't really dug so far on the estimate is because I'm working with a company to do a shop floor layout where they're gonna come and take my drawings and see what they're gonna put it in a PDF into a CAD drawing, and basically look at the square footage so that I can tentatively be like, all right, a lift can go here, a lift can go there, this can go here, this is where your toolboxes should go. Just so like, okay, you know what, you should take the doors out of the front of the building and move them to the side. And then, but if they're in a blueprint, then you're spending all this extra money to redraw things that could have just been drawn one time, so.
I mean, as this is saying, it's talking about an estimate.
Right.
So once he gets that, he can fine tune that figure,
Right, all right, so,
Yeah,
okay.
period.
yeah.
He just knows.
I suggest, offer a suggestion, that would be to add a finding D, which says total cost that will be submitted to be submitted at site plan review with financing proposed.
I would include that in my motion, what George recommended, that the applicant has satisfied a reasonable burden of proof of compliance with the criterion for financial and technical ability. Where'd you go?
Okay, we have a motion. Did we get a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. The motion included finding D. All those in favor, please raise a hand. 5-0. Now, we are on to conditions of approval, which is the final one. Section 7.5, conditions of approval, planning board approval conditions. Upon consideration of the criteria listed in subsection 7.4, the planning board may by majority vote attach such conditions in addition to those required by other provision of this ordinance as it finds necessary to ensure compliance with those criteria and all other applicable requirements of this ordinance. Violation of any of those conditions shall be a violation of this ordinance. I would like to, I think we have at least one other condition, which is the details of waste handling per paragraph.
You've discussed, I think, 4 additional ones.
Okay,
Were those
Or
added?
3 at least, 4. So the first one was the details on waste storage, which you just mentioned,
okay,
and disposal per section 5.26 to be on the site plan. Second one was adding the site distances to the site plan.
gotcha.
And then adding drainage details to be provided at site plan review. And then finally, the total cost of the project with financing at site plan review.
Okay, so a total of 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so the conditions that I now have are, number 1, the project is to be constructed in accordance with the plans, maps, diagrams, specifications, textual submissions, and testimony presented by the applicant and approved by the board. Number 2, details on hazardous waste storage will, in accordance with Article 5.26 of the Land Use Ordinance, will be provided at site plan approval. And site distance will be on the site plan. Site distance on Route 136. Details will be provided, details on drainage will be provided at site plan, with the site plan. And then number 5 is total cost estimate and proof of fiscal capability will be provided with the site, at the site plan filing. It's close to what we want.
Yes.
I've got a no on the end,
Not a no, just maybe an addition.
okay?
I'm not sure if it's worth mentioning or adding this as an approval criteria, but the amount of vehicles that could be stored outside of the building. We've approved something in the past that's become quite a eyesore that was probably overlooked in hindsight, but I think that it's important to note, you say 10 vehicles tops, and
For
you're trying to make this
Traveling in
building.
and out, is that what you mean?
Well, you say traveling, yeah. Yeah.
So my projects are fairly long, so there's really usually never anything sitting there unless I've rolled it out to do another job and then put it back in and then, you know what I mean, like do a shuffle. I don't really have customer stuff sitting around.
Understood. Not yet,
But
but you're
Yeah.
expanding your business, and
yeah, I hear what you're saying.
it's not quite labeled or written out in any of our ordinances here, but I would like to put a restriction on the amount of vehicles that can be stored outside of your facility?
outside of,
Yeah,
outside of what I own.
no, outside the building.
Right.
Yeah. Outside of
Just
what you
throwing it
own,
out there
yes.
for the
Right.
board to think about.
Yes.
It's-
Yes.
Oh, I got you.
It's vehicles that he's working on,
Gotcha.
not his personal
Yeah.
use.
Yeah, and here's the problem, Mr. Davis, is 20 years from now, you move on, this site is approved for automotive repair.
Gotcha.
And, or 10 years from now, or 100 years from now.
Only with a conditional use permit though.
Yeah, but this carries with the land.
Gotcha.
So the next guy may say, you know, you just have to drive by where you see what people do. I think that's an excellent point.
I get what you're saying.
What's a good number, 5? What can you live with?
5
Less, 4?
plenty. 5 is plenty.
I mean, I'll go down to 3.
I
5 is
didn't know you were
plenty.
gonna negotiate tonight.
What's that? 5, is 5 good with everybody?
Well, maybe something you propose to think about for the next plan.
I mean, the worst
Right,
case
like-
scenario is I have someone coming to pick up and another customer dropping off. So sometimes there's 2 or 3, only because one's getting an oil change and tire rotation, so it's like, it's in and out. But 5 would be way more than plenty.
So go 3. I would.
Can you live with 3?
That's the decision, that's. the
But again,
decision.
these are vehicles stored on site, correct?
For sure.
Yeah, we're not talking about your oil change.
It's the ones that are outside the building.
It's-
It's the eyesore.
Waiting for a transmission, waiting for,
Right, right.
sitting
Yes,
there
3,
for
that's perfect.
3 is
Yes.
perfect.
extensive periods of time.
Okay, then 3 is good for everybody else?
If you're comfortable with that.
3
I mean, am I
vehicles
gonna
stored
get
outside the
penalized
building.
If there's
limit.
4 and you come up for an oil change?
What does stored mean? Are we talking 2 hours? Are we
That's a good
talking
question.
6
No,
hours?
that makes sense, so
Like-
if I've gotta wait a week for a transmission, theoretically, the customer's car is getting kicked out until it's in, because I'm not gonna let it just take up, space.
Exactly.
So that's, what, quote unquote, being stored outside. 3 is plenty, 100%.
Okay,
I don't wanna, am I gonna be penalized? You're asking me if I'm all right with 3. I mean, what's the chance that there is a 4th one?
But I think for the applicant's benefit, we should define stored.
I think the reality is, if there's a 4th one there, it's not gonna be an issue. If there's 25 cars sitting out there
Absolutely
in
not.
the future,
No
the
way.
code officer is gonna notice, and then they say, wait a minute, and we have a record of what was
Yeah,
approved.
okay.
Thank you, George. Yeah, I just think there should be some restriction.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I missed,
I
I agree.
agree with it all too.
So
yeah.
3.
I don't want a junkyard at my house.
No more than 3 vehicles will be stored overnight. Is that if we have to have a storage thing, or just stored, period?
I would say outside. If he's gonna put something inside, it's
Oh, I don't
outside,
care about
out
that,
of
exactly,
mind.
yeah.
So,
I mean,
okay.
for overnight or just stored outside
Stored
I
outside.
would just say outside.
with no time restrictions? I waited 7 months for a
Right.
part on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to wait, if there's 3 of them and you wait 7 months for one of them, you're
Right,
good.
right, that's what I mean. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Charge him accordingly for storage.
I do,
I would.
I do.
There you go.
It hasn't happened very often, but
George, you got that? So that would be the 5th or 6th?
Yep.
So I think we move on before I get them down to 2. Okay, so, I will make a motion on this one, try to get it all included. I started doing it. So, I will make, I make a motion that to apply the following conditions of approval to the permit for conditional use. Number 1 is the project to be constructed in accordance with the plans, maps, diagrams, specifications, textual submissions, and testimony presented by the applicant and approved by the board. Number 2 is details on the storage of hazardous waste in accordance with Article 5.26 of the Land Use Ordinance will be provided. 3 is the site distance on State Route 136 will be on the site plan at your driveway. 4 is details on drainage will be provided at the site plan. 5 is a total cost estimate with a proof of capacity, for lack of a better term, something from your bank,
Okay.
or whatever, or
Financial institution.
yeah, get financial, bring in a chest of money, leave it here. 6 then is no more than 3 vehicles will be stored outside, on site. Does that capture it? Okay, and I think that was a good catch.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Okay, thank you. We're up one more step. Planning board decision. I'll make the motion. Motion made by John Talbot. The planning board grants conditional use approval of the automotive repair business at 1586 Royalsboro Road, map 1, lot 56.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, please raise a hand to approve. Okay, your step 1 is done. Get all that stuff on the site plan and come back in and see us.
And you'll receive all this in writing.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if, okay, thank you very much. Let's do this.
So do I get, in the email will tell me the decision for what I'm doing now currently?
You mean whether it's okay to do what you're doing now? Is that what you're asking?
Permitting, that'll be
Yeah.
from Alan Plummer.
Yeah, there's
No, I mean, when you talk about doing, to keep doing it part-time, I think you're good. But to build a new building, you gotta get a site plan approval.
No, right, but I mean, I'm working out of my garage currently.
I think we're okay there.
As long as you meet the limits of home occupation, you're
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
So the answer is yes. You can continue doing what you're doing.
Okay. And do I have to fill something out for
No.
that?
No.
Okay,
You're doing.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, have a good night.
What time is it? 8:15?
Not bad.
Okay, next group would be Ferry Ridge, I believe. 8:16.
That's you.
Please come up, 2 or 3 of you, state your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members, for having us here tonight. I'm Bill Garish with Northeast Civil Solutions.
Connor Barassa with Northeast Civil Solutions.
You guys are out of Scarborough?
Yes.
Okay.
David Brackett, 31 Oakville Lane.
And you're the owner, a property owner. Okay, so Mr. Demarge?
Yes, there are 2 steps for this review. The first is being the completeness review to determine that the applicants have submitted all the required information for preliminary plan. As we discussed at the sketch plan review stage, they're proposing 7-lot subdivision, the 7th lot being the common area. They did have sketch plan as required and a site walk done in October. I've included in the packet the checklist that I prepared based on review of the submissions, and the only missing item seems to be the indication of historic or architectural resources being reviewed. That can be a condition of preliminary approval, which I've included in the draft. And then you could determine from this meeting whether to hold a public hearing, and then move on to the general review of the application.
Okay, do you want to say anything about the project before general?
We'd be happy to provide an overview of the project if you'd like, or...
If you don't mind, quickly, we have a TV on it, it'll be very fast.
Okay, yeah.
7 lots, whatever.
Okay, yeah. The property is 64 acres. I know many of you were at if not all of you were at the site walk, so you get to see the site. The 7 lots proposed, ranging from 6 to 12 acres each. The site is accessed by Oakville Lane, which is kind of on the bottom of the sheet, coming up from Newell Brook Road. It's an existing, somewhat narrow gravel road that's been there for several years. That's proposed to be improved to meet the width requirements and so forth for town standards. We'll talk about I know we have a waiver request, so we can get into that a little bit later. The internal subdivision road would be built to the same standards up through the subdivision. We walk that whole area. It kind of follows the ridge, falls off in slope to either side. There are some resources on the project site. You can see some wetland areas. There's some stream segments on the right-hand side. You can see the 75-foot setback bubbles from those stream segments. There is a significant vernal pool on the north end of the site. All the surveys were done, and it was basically determined to be significant, so the 250-foot radius is shown around that. We are proposing a little bit of wetland fill just on the last section of the road, which would be a little less than 1,800 square feet. There are some improvements within the vernal pool setback area, much less than the 25%. We will be filing a permit by rule in accordance with Section 19 of the PBR standards for that. And test pits have been done to determine site suitability for septic systems. The soils in general on the site, on the northwest side of the road, those are all Adams type, loamy sand type soils, if you're familiar with that. Very free draining soils, typical of a riverbank area. When you get down to the lower part of the site, between the proposed road and Newell Brook Road, that's where you start to get into your Scandic soils and your Buxton soils, which are a little more poorly draining soils. All the proposed houses and buildings and so forth are up in the good soils area, as well as the proposed road. There is a proposed fire pond in the common area lot, as you can see. We haven't had a hydrogeologist look at that area yet, but our soil scientist, when he was out there doing his test pits, we did have him do a deeper test pit at that location, just to check with soil types, seasonal high groundwater, and so forth. And it did look like a favorable area for the fire pond.
And is that in the sandy soils? I mean, is it gonna hold water?
That is hydrologic group D type soils based on the test pit, so that's the poorly draining soils.
Okay.
The better draining soils are up on top of the ridge and then going down towards the river.
I just violated one of my rules. I'm not supposed to ask questions at this point. But
yeah, that's fine. And we may ultimately move it, down a little bit closer to that wetland finger just to make sure it's going to work, but we just wanted to get an idea. Stormwater runoff more or less goes in the area where all the houses are proposed on the left-hand side of the road, the northwest side. That all drains down the hill. You can see a wetland that traverses that area between there and the river. And that all comes this way and ends up down into the river. Basically, everything on the other side of the road drains down through the woods into those wetland areas. There is a culvert crossing on Newell Brook Road, as well as Oakville Lane. Those feed some other wetlands on the other side of the road that ultimately go to Dyer Brook, which you can kind of see in the very bottom left corner of the sheet, that conveys everything off to the Androscoggin River. We tried to keep as much, space and and undeveloped woodland between any of the developed areas and those wetlands in order to get it in. I think the net density would allow, what was it, Connor, 14 units in there?
At least over a dozen,
Yeah.
a dozen.
So the applicant is certainly taking a reasonable approach here to have bigger lots, more sparse development than would possibly be able to happen on this lot. We did submit the SHPO, Maine Historic Preservation Commission, request and sent the plans to them after we saw George's comments on the project, so that has been initiated. And I guess, is this a good time to talk about the waiver requests, or do you want to wait till
Hold
we get
tight.
there?
Yeah, hold tight.
All
So,
right, I said I'd be brief, and I wasn't that brief.
that's not bad, but,
Okay.
okay, so members, what I'd like to do this evening, since we've got some stuff after this, is I'd like to go through and determine whether or not the completeness review is done. And we've done this with previous projects. So get through a completeness review, and then we started a brief discussion about the actual preliminary plan. And then we need to decide after completeness whether we want to have a public hearing, and I guess what I'm saying is more likely we're probably not going to get the preliminary plan approval this evening. So we'll get through completeness and move on to whether we want to do the public hearing or not. We've done that in the last couple. So let's start with completeness. And Mr. Thabarge has done a review of the plan set for completeness, and I believe that the only no I saw was historic, and they've discussed that. So members, any comments on, again, this is completeness. Is something there? Is there a complete application form? Does it do they show water location? This is not, do we agree with the size of it or anything else? Just the fact that the documentation they're required to submit test pits, all that is there.
I do have a question about FEMA, just like, so you provided this map here, right? I guess, I wonder where the site is in relation to this.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, maybe just next time an updated.
Yeah,
showing the
we'll show the
location.
site boundaries. In general, there's a pretty steep bank, a high bank on the river.
Yeah.
So the 100-year flood zone doesn't really come up onto the property very far,
Is
so.
it near that road? Is it near the access
Flood
road?
area
Yeah.
comes in here, like something like this.
So you have a resource protection line parallel to the river on the backside, yeah, where he's pointing out there, and it is well beyond that resource protection zone that the water goes up to.
Okay, so maybe just for next time, throw an
We'll put
image
the,
on that where
yeah,
the
here,
site
make a
is.
note of that.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that dotted line, is that showing,
That is the
That's the
250-foot
RPZ.
resource
okay,
protection zone.
Yeah.
not necessarily the 100-year flood?
Yeah,
line.
the
But it's on the
100-year
other
flood
side,
is very close to the bank. You can
It's
see
only
on the,
120 feet, right? Or it's right here. Isn't that it?
yeah,
So it's even in more.
yeah, it's
That's
even,
250, this is more.
yeah. it's
So the
very-
flood line is inside that 250 foot
It's
line?
well within the 250, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this piece you're saying is over here.
Yeah, that's down behind you can see the building right there, that would be
This
that building,
building.
yeah, so it's,
So it comes like here.
yeah, it's off the property.
Okay. So yeah, if you just want to put that on there right there.
Yeah, we'll put the boundary on there, yep.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else we think is missing from their requirements?
Do maintenance agreements fall under this?
For the road maintenance agreement?
For this portion that we're reviewing right now,
The road maintenance agreement?
and open space? George mentioned.
Oh,
that.
HOA, that would be in the HOA document, I think. Is that what you're saying? Who's gonna maintain the
Yeah.
open space?
Yeah,
That would be in the HOA documents. I don't think they're at this point.
No.
okay, all right.
Always ask the expert, so. But that's something, if you've never done, you guys have done subdivisions, but your HOA documents are gonna have to.
Yep.
Who's gonna maintain the road, who's gonna do all that other kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
The one thing that is missing, the historical document, I'm okay, do we waive that, George? Do we just,
It could be noted as that needs to be submitted on the letter of completeness.
Okay, so it could be submitted, we can approve completeness today.
Yep.
And then requirement when they, before we look at before next month if possible, the historic letter. So I know it's the holiday.
Technically, it could be it's that final approval, they're supposed to check with all the state agencies, but it's important to know now if there are any historical resources. And where you might get is archaeological along the river in terms of Native American sites and stuff, so it's just to do a check.
Yeah, it's more for the applicant to get it done earlier, but I think what you're saying is we can accept it next round, right?
They are
If we're okay with that.
required to indicate if they know of anything on this property.
Yeah.
And then they have to check with the state Maine Historic Preservation Commission.
But
And we've sent
you've
that
already
in,
submitted it.
and they usually get them back, 3 or 4 weeks? Usually
Well,
a
they've
couple
been
of
pretty
weeks.
quick lately, so we'll probably see it within the next week or two, a response.
Well, our next meeting that we would take care of you, we'd have it announced is January 8th. So that, so sometime to submit it to Mr. Thamar's before then, if possible.
What's the farmlands and farm soils if 5 acres or more? So these aren't farm ag soils?
I checked the maps,
Yeah.
and there's no part of this that exceeds 5 acres of either prime farmland soil or statewide significance.
Yeah, okay,
There are some small pockets.
got it.
Anything else on the submissions completeness? I will take a motion, it's not that easy, is it? I will take a motion to approve this project as the completeness.
So moved.
Second? Moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the completeness review, please raise a hand. 5-0. Okay, at this point, I'd like to hold off on the waiver until next time for the stormwater. If that would, and we'll discuss that as part of your preliminary plan review. If plant board members okay with that?
Well, can I ask one thing though of the applicant? Is this decision though going to play into like what we decide as far as yes waiver, no waiver, whether what you add to your next design?
I guess we were anticipating the possibility of having the completeness and preliminary review this evening. Is that doable?
Sorry, just back up the waiver piece, that's the only thing I'm focused
Oh,
on right
okay.
now. Was that gonna play into your next step regardless of the preliminary? If we say yes to your waiver or no to the waiver, is that going to impact your next steps?
Certainly the determination on the waiver would, I think, determine, how we would proceed,
So I just wonder if,
Okay.
because of that, we should.
So is it on your
Do it.
preliminary plan now? Does it show any kind of drainage ponds? Because what you're asking for is no drainage, stormwater management. You're not asking for a formal drainage pond swale
Correct.
system. And that's not on your preliminary plan.
That's not on the preliminary plan.
Okay.
And I would note that with the proposal of the subdivision, which the applicant is PBG LLC, the applicant does intend to construct the roadway infrastructure and drainage and so forth. The lots will be conveyed off individually, and under Title 38, 420D with the Stormwater Management Law, impervious and disturbed areas associated with construction or expansion of a single-family detached residence on a parcel do not require review pursuant to this section. So typically, when we do subdivisions like this, if the applicant is going to build the road, build all the houses, they're going to sell all the houses off individually, then we would be subject to review under the stormwater law for the houses and the driveways and all of that stuff. But in a case like this, where the lots are going to be conveyed off individually, the DEP just looks at the road infrastructure with that, we would be under an acre, so we would be looking at a stormwater permit by rule. So under the DEP standards, we would not have to provide stormwater quality treatment or runoff calculations or anything like this. And I would note that the ordinance does have a provision for allowing the board to provide or grant this waiver for stormwater with a site having less than 5% impervious, which we're about 2.4%. And just given the verbiage in that ordinance provision, I would suggest that it was written for a project like this, so.
Okay. Thank you.
How's that sound?
Okay, other comments? Do we want to discuss the waiver, approve the waiver this evening? There's two waivers,
We
actually.
also have
Yeah.
the waiver on Oakville Lane,
Yes.
which
and-
is, I understand what they're trying to do, but my concern would be, we would be setting a precedent that does not agree with our ordinance on paving. And how that would be indicated on future subdivisions.
George, can you point us to the ordinance section that talks about, I'm sorry, can anybody?
Yeah, what are you asking?
Where- The stormwater, the items that you just
I
mentioned.
can point you out to that, yeah.
Yeah,
I just wanna-
yeah, we'll stick to the stormwater
Okay.
piece, if you don't mind, Alan.
No, it's fine.
There's,
I guess the real question is if we want to do waivers tonight.
I thought we could at least consider the stormwater one, but if it is gonna take a lot more time and there's another waiver.
It's on, it's section 6.9, C22 on page 50 of the ordinance, stormwater management plan.
So yeah, this doesn't require a SLOTA, right? And it
correct.
doesn't require stormwater law permit at
Just
all.
stormwater PBR, yeah.
PBR, okay.
Yep.
Thoughts on,
This is if we allow it to be a gravel road, correct?
no, this has nothing to
No,
do
this
with,
is in-
oh yeah, I guess,
Actually, yeah, that's a good
if
point.
it becomes an asphalt road, if we don't approve your second waiver, then you're going to exceed will you exceed the,
No, whether it's gravel or asphalt, the DEP would consider it impervious, so it's the same.
okay.
Yeah, so we considered the impervious area, everything from shoulder to shoulder.
In your calculations?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as the ordinance states, that will not involve grading, which changes the drainage patterns. We've been very careful to make sure that the road ditches all, daylight into the areas that it already drains to, and everything, stays the same. The wetland at the end, we align the culvert with the wetlands, so all the drainage goes in that same area.
Can you explain why gravel is considered impervious?
It's basically the definition of the main DEP's Chapter 500. But you raise a good question, because I was going to point that out in the next waiver request, that a type A gravel with 0 to 7% fines does take in some water, so it would be less runoff than an actual paved road. But
Yeah,
under
that makes
DEP's Chapter 500, they consider a packed, anything that's compacted earth, whether it's gravel or soil, impervious.
There's a backup for that? And, okay, I have another question. I'm sorry if I'm jumping around.
No, we've argued that.
As long as we're sticking to
You also
stormwater,
list
Yeah.
rooftops as being impervious. How is that possible?
Well, the rooftops themselves are impervious. The water goes off the roof, usually onto a pervious area, but the rooftops generally are considered, they're considered impervious under chapter 500 as well.
I mean, I assume it's because the rain hits, I don't mean it to be insulting, hits the roof and runs off. If it hits the ground, it hits, not a road, but if it hits the ground, it may or may not run off, depending upon the type of ground and all that. So I think that's what, so the water that comes down and then starts flowing across the property is greater because of a roof. Unless it's a green roof, but we won't go into that tonight.
Yeah.
And so you've added up all those potential roofs and the road, even though it's gravel, and that is less than, what'd you say, it's 2 point something%?
Yeah, it ended up being 2.4%. I think it was about 1.55 acres
And our
total.
ordinance says below 5% we can consider.
Yep. Yeah.
And the grading, not much grading? I think I had the wrong plan.
Minimal grading, I mean, we did want to make sure that the ditches were deep enough alongside the road to drain the base material out, which is in your standards and just good engineering practice. But there are enough areas where the road is, a couple feet above grade, so things just drain off. Where we parked for the site walk, anything on that side of the road kind of goes off to the right, before it gets to that existing house. And then, basically everything on the other side, the houses are proposed right on the ridge, so everything will go that way from the houses back, so.
Can I ask a question? Why are you requesting a waiver on the stormwater? Is it just to save on the cost of the plan itself?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you guys are doing the management of stormwater.
We're trying to do
But
the
you're-
management, we just didn't want to have to go through the whole, expense of preparing the formal plan. If it was required by the DEP, we would just submit it and we wouldn't ask for the waiver.
Okay, other comments?
Clearing trees that entire way, right?
Yep.
So you reduce tree clearing because you're not digging a pond.
Correct, yeah, I mean,
So-
the stormwater infrastructure for ponds or soil filters or level spreaders would result in some more clearing.
I guess, Mike, and we're gonna have a discussion next time. So you're certifying that it's well under the 5%, your 2 point, whatever it is, 5, whatever it is. Okay,
It's 64 acres, so if we were at 5%, we'd be over 3 acres and we'd be in the site location. We're not even close to that, so. It's that exemption that I mentioned under the stormwater law doesn't exist for the site law. So if you do trigger a site law permit, you have to account for all the houses and individual lots.
so you're not accounting for any houses in that 2%?
No, you are.
No, we
Oh,
are,
Yes.
yeah.
I
yeah.
got you, misunderstood, okay. Okay,
I have no objection to the waiver request in the stormwater, basically because it's under our requirements of
Okay.
5%.
so I guess what I need is a motion to approve or disapprove.
The stormwater waiver?
Yeah, we're still in the stormwater waiver.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any further discussion? If you vote to approve, please raise a hand. I'd hate to be the sole guy. Okay, so 5-0. So this will go to peer review, so, if you're wrong. Okay, let's go on to the road. I think your second waiver. Find that one. Subdivision, so this is for, why is a waiver being requested? Why don't you explain why the waiver is being requested?
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, there's cost associated with paving and maintaining asphalt pavement. I can tell you that for a road that will receive this type of very low use, we did specify that the ordinance requires a type A type base material. which is, and it's allowed to be either crushed or screened material, which is outlined in Appendix 1. We've actually specified the crushed only material for the surface base, which would be crushed aggregate that would hold together very well. What we found, I guess, based on experience, that a paved road with such low usage, your spec does require a super paved mix. And a gravel road, you know, with a good firm base, you know, can be maintained, annual grading, compacting. You can basically restore it to a new condition. Asphalt pavement, especially a super paved mix, which is very angular aggregate, natural sand. It's very low asphalt content. It's designed for highways to prevent rutting from trucks and so forth. On a usage like this, it doesn't receive enough traffic to. Asphalt pavement is actually a flexible material. It's designed to have some movement. It does oxidize very quickly if it's just left to sit there with low traffic use. It tends to get brittle. It tends to crack, you know, more prematurely. It just, if we were asked to design a road with this level of use, we would do something. We would recommend something other than 3.5 inches of super paved surface. I understand it's cleaner, and you know, it certainly won't erode, but we feel that a good crushed aggregate base course with crushed materials, meeting all the dimensions, will be very serviceable for this type of use, very good for the emergency vehicles and whatever traffic it receives, and just, you know, reasonable to maintain over time. So we just feel it's appropriate for this type of road. I know it doesn't coincide with Appendix 1 of your ordinance, but we feel that it's appropriate, and it would be good engineering practice to go with a crushed aggregate surface on this road.
Okay.
So I guess what I understand what you're saying, and when you talk about low usage, to what extent would we use for a definition for low usage when we're looking at 7 homes in there? 6. And if we have 6 homes in there, whenever we look at a subdivision, we always look, the heavier traffic that we're looking on something like that would be waste management. And from everything that this board has been working with about waste management, we would certainly like to see waste management be picked up at each individual homeowner's driveway, and certainly not on Route 9.
Mm-hmm.
It's been accumulating on certain roads in town, and it's not safe, but that would be one of my concerns. You're going to have heavy equipment going in there, and cement mixes are going to be going in there, and whether you build that road to your standard, at what point do you build it to your standard? Is it prior to all the cement trucks going in, or after? I mean, they're going to have access. They're going to have a good road to get up and in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if this area was in, you know, clay type soils, if there were poor soil conditions, high groundwater table and things like that, we would consider, you know, the need for the extra structure of the asphalt pavement. In this case, we went with the same depth, so the 3.5 inches of asphalt, we replaced that with an additional 3.5 inches of gravel. And then with the 6-inch aggregate base course, given the subsoil conditions, we don't anticipate any issues with stability here. If the road's graded properly and it drains off to the side and the base is drained by the ditches and so forth, it should be able to support any vehicles that go on here, so from a structural standpoint.
I would certainly think that if we're going to approve something like this, it's different than what our ordinance requires. But in doing, like I said, if we approved it, we certainly would have to have a documented maintenance agreement that's going to maintain it to the high standards that the applicant is recommending.
Gotcha. I guess I'll weigh in. I am not in favor, because the town, in my limited experience here, the town, the Public Works Director have been very adamant about asphalting at a certain point in the thing. So that's not been something that they've considered. I mean, they have historically talked about private roads, the standards that private roads are built to. There's a lot of people who would agree with you, but we've never gotten there. You know, we've never changed that, waived that standard, changed that standard. And I understand cost and the whole 9 yards. There are, if there's a hill, it does potentially wash out with gravel. And I would say that there is I hear what you're saying, but you're relying upon somebody to actually maintain the road. And, I guess you have to do the same with asphalt, but it's gonna last longer. So I am not in favor of changes, just because historically the town has been pretty adamant about this is the standard. We've made everybody who's come in here, we held up a project because they didn't asphalt it fast enough. Granted, with 13 lots is not a whole heck of a lot more than 7 in terms of traffic and other things. So that's my feeling on that, but other comments?
Yeah, is this road gonna be plowed in the winter, right? And so
Yep.
that's I had a gravel driveway, and now it's not, I don't even know what it is. It's like sand, like all the gravel's gone. So unless you're gonna maintain that, bring it all back every year, it could be a mess, right? And just water collects on it, there's bumps everywhere, so yeah, I'm not
I mean, we have, Durham has seen, there have been some subdivisions where the base hasn't held up. And at that particular one that I'm thinking of was a town-approved road, which we do not approve. Town doesn't approve subdivision roads at this point unless it was put on the warrant to look at it again. But I've seen where the base has deteriorated and therefore the asphalt deteriorates. And then you get back to having to maintain it. It's all about maintenance and building the base properly. If the base isn't good, it doesn't matter whether it's gravel or asphalt. If it isn't maintained, it won't stand up, and I think you know that. I'm very wary about approving this waiver and the precedent that it would set. What happens to the next subdivision that comes along? And I feel that we'd be backing the town into a corner that I don't want to be in.
I would agree, because somebody comes in with a 13 lots, which we get a lot of 13 lot subdivisions. Says, well, that's not a lot of traffic. And I respect your opinion, in terms of the professionalism. Don't take that the wrong way. So, other comments? Seeing none, I will make a motion. I will make a motion that we not approve this waiver.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, if you vote to not approve this, please raise a hand. Vote to approve it. 4-1. Sorry on that one, guys.
Okay.
Sorry, but not. There's a long history of roads in
So,
town.
from what I heard earlier, we have to pay from the third house up, right?
No.
You are getting creative, aren't you?
No, that's not what we said. So that is the waivers. What I'd like to do next, I don't think we're going to get to your approval. Let me maybe resolve this. Do we want to do a public hearing on this?
Yes.
And I tend to agree. We've done
should,
public
yeah.
hearings on all the others, so I would agree that we probably need to do a public hearing on this. And so we will begin our next meeting on the 8th of January. 8th, I believe.
Yes.
That's
First.
the Wednesday. The Wednesday, the 8th of January. Begin your part of it with a public hearing.
So that fits our timeline requirements, correct?
I believe it does. George, we have any issues with timelines?
Should be all right.
Okay. And then we'll do the public, you saw today with Bowie Hill, what we did there. So, I guess what I'd like to do is, since we're gonna have a public hearing, are there any comments, and we've already gotten some, and your introduction was worthwhile, that we want these guys to take back and think about before the 8th of January? Sir?
I think I mentioned this during the first time you guys came through here. I'm totally not a fan of the right-of-way to the access to Lot 6, I guess it is. I think there are ways you could be a little more creative about making sure that Lot 5 gets 300 feet of frontage, and to get that driveway out of a right-of-way situation.
Okay, so you're saying that driveway goes through 5, right? Is that the issue?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's almost like they'll need an easement through 5 to
They
get to 6.
totally need an easement,
Yeah.
and I just think that there are, I don't particularly like being forced into a plan. I think there are other ways that you could look at that to be creative, as you mentioned earlier, to make that a happier situation.
And, yeah, and I can explain, I guess, why it is. And this plan doesn't show the grading, but there are some, you start to get into the steep slopes. So you can see it's kind of hard to see on that.
No,
but-
there is a plan, if you keep going, George, there is a plan that shows a blow-up, right, with grading, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so the steep slopes area starts right at the end of the road. And if you remember, if you go to the left, there was a big 6-stem oak tree that's right there.
Yeah.
So we were up there, and we did have the hammerhead turnaround in the other direction, which did allow us to, I guess, a little more favorably push that driveway down. But we did want to keep that tree. We did want to cross that wetland at the narrowest possible place we could, and then off the end of the road and everywhere else. And then, so that's the reason the hammerhead got switched up to the other direction, so it doesn't come down towards the wetland and towards the steep area. And then as soon as you get off the end of the road, it just starts to drop. So we did, we looked at every way around trying to get a driveway up there. If we extend the road out with a maximum 8% slope, we never catch grade again. So we really had to end the road there where it's relatively flat, and then just didn't have anywhere else to put the driveway with the wetland there and the hammerhead. So an easement like that is fairly common. I know it's atypical, but there are plenty of subdivisions that have those. And again, that lot up above is, that one's quite a few acres, so.
11, almost 12.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
And then you're asking us to approve some disturbance of wetlands right there. So assuming it's plan north.
Yep.
I know it's not true north, but assuming it's plan north, if you moved the end of the road further east and flip the hammerhead and then start the driveway where the existing hammerhead is, does that help that situation at all? Because you're still within a low sloped area if you pulled that driveway to where the existing hammerhead is and flipped the whole thing. I don't know, I would like to see some other options so that there's not so much area in a right-of-way situation.
Okay.
That's just my comment.
Yeah.
That's,
Can I ask you, Brian, what the issue, your issue is you mentioned?
there's so much of this in this other lot.
Yeah, yeah.
This is, right,
I
I mean,
see.
I
Yeah.
think if you
Flip
pull
that.
this out,
Mhm.
so this guy has 371 feet of road frontage. He only needs 300,
Mhm.
right? I think.
Yeah, so get the hammerhead out over here.
Yeah, pull
Flip
pull
it.
this out, flip it, and then move the driveway out there.
Mhm.
What if
And
you
you're
just
still
came off?
you're still not messing around with the slope or the grade issue that's there.
What if
you're
you just
still
came
within-
off the background,
Off the what?
off the background?
Yeah, I mean, we'd be happy to bring the driveway right off the
Just come right off there.
turnaround.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
if you look at go back to that other, site plan where you have the grading, right there. It's not that steep off the top of, right there, yeah, exactly.
Just got that.
Okay, that's certainly a reasonable request.
Less impact on the vernal pool habitat too.
Where do you put the hammer, the?
The background, you just have the background, their driveway comes off it. There.
But then if you, and then if you just flip the hammerhead, so you still have the hammerhead, but it's on the,
I don't even think you need to do that.
south side.
Just have the driveway come right off the
Well,
background.
then they'd have the turnaround in their
Yeah,
driveway.
to me, that's not a true
No.
hammerhead,
Yeah.
safety-wise. We could ask the chief.
Well,
But-
the large vehicles will be able to go here, back in, just like it does now.
But I think what Brian is asking, because I think originally, didn't you have the hammerhead pointing
this side.
opposite?
Yeah, we had the hammerhead pointing, but the road was up a little further, where the grades are flatter. We brought the road down a little bit just to get around that tree.
You offered, I think, to take a look at
This
that.
does not, this keeps the tree as it is.
Yeah.
What I'm saying.
Yeah,
Just
no.
a suggestion. I
No,
just want-
that's good. I know a lot of ordinances do, on a small subdivision with a small number of lots, actually allow the last driveway to be the hammerhead, so that would be,
We could ask the chief.
yeah. You'd still build the hammerhead to the same standards, and
There are some.
it sounds like it's gonna get paved, so then you'd have a gravel driveway just coming off the end of that. That certainly works.
I would ask the chief. I guess just a general comment, this is gonna come out totally the wrong way, but what we're asking to do, why do we care what the driveway impact is on lot 5? To me, does a buyer accept that? I mean, it's got two buyers. Is the buyer for lot 5 and the buyer for lot 6 okay with it? Is just my thought. If you're willing to take a look at that, but just my personal opinion is, if that's buyer beware, you've got an easement
You're
going through
buying
your
an
yard.
encumbered lot,
And the other
yeah.
option
That's sort of
is,
my thought.
the other option is come right off the corner of it. Like, instead, because
I
one of the
agree.
issues, they don't encourage driveways off the end, because then you plow and you pile all the snow right here, not as much so here, but if you came off at that corner right there, that shortens it.
Well, I think what I would ask is that you take a look at, you said you're open to doing that, and maybe flipping the hammerhead, because if we just would have, if the fire chief is okay with using it as a driveway, we haven't done that again in the past, but, is it hard to just turn it 180 degrees and have a dedicated hammerhead?
I
Okay.
totally hear what you're saying, John. I would just rather have a less amount of impact on my lot 5 property than.
Yeah, as you're saying, I just see it as sort of as a buyer beware. It's not an after the fact thing, but, because you guys gotta sell it, and if you think you can sell it that way, I'm okay with that too, so, but please take a look at it, and those are the kinds of things we'll have,
Yep.
next discussion. Anything else we'd like to send them home with? Please get with the fire chief, get with the Public Works guy, about, you know, the connection to, it's a state road, you'll need an MDOT, because you are increasing traffic on it. I think you'll need an MDOT.
Driveway.
Driveway
yeah.
permit, thank you, a different one. Anything else that, and then get started on all of the state approvals, if you haven't already, I think you have, for the checklist. Looking to my right, any other comments for these guys before they?
Just updating the FEMA, very small task.
We haven't seen any construction cost estimates either, doesn't need.
Correct, yeah, we haven't provided those as yet.
That would be for final.
And you heard my closing comments to the last subdivision. It sucks for both of us to have, we need an extension because we didn't get this. We didn't submit it in time. Please just get them submitted, beat on the state agency or FEMA or whoever you need to beat on town folks to get you what you need.
Yep, absolutely.
Gone. So we'll start you all next time with a public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Merry
very much.
Christmas. Okay, a couple of quick things, George. It's after 9, so I'd kind of like to wrap this about 9:30 if we could. So we're going to meet next week, December 11th, I guess it is. So George kind of covered the land use ordinance piece of this, but if I could add just a little bit more, the select board is this contract zoning. So on the 11th, the attorney will come and present us a little, here's what contract zoning is. And that's at least new to, I mean, I maybe know it under other names, but, so she will kind of say, this is what contract zoning is, this is why we want to do it. This particular land use article to create contract zoning is being driven and managed by the select board. So they're going to have the attorney write the language for it, and she will present it to them at the end of December, if I'm not, and George is assisting, but by the end of December, she will provide it to the select board. Our role in it will be, they will present us what they want to be reviewed at the public hearing. So we're not gonna help write that particular article, if that makes sense. I mean, certainly our comments will be doing, but, and George, I don't know if they plan to have a public information meeting as a select board or how they're going to do that. But so our role in contract zoning is pretty limited. Fair statement? I mean, you've been involved with Jerry, the select board, so that piece of it. So they've got the same deadline, they gotta get it, and we will hold a public hearing, I think, or unless they also can hold a public hearing if they so desire. And I would strongly recommend that they get as much information out about that as possible. Make a plug for those watching at home that listen in on December 11th and learn about contract zoning. The other piece to battery storage is developing the standards, similar to what we did, and that's on us, similar to what we did for solar. So, and a lot of that, George has come up with a draft on it. We beat through that bush with solar in terms of setbacks and some of the other stuff. We've talked about how battery storage is different. The directive from the select board is tasking us to come up with this and to have it ready to go April 5th, I think, whatever that town meeting is. So you back off of that. I think it's the 5th or 6th of March through, early March till the end of March, 7 days before the meeting, we have to have a public hearing on it. I would like to make sure that we have a public information meeting, and Brian, you spoke very well at the special town meeting, that we get that information out to what is best, what are the safety standards that we are recommending if they approve the standards. So the standards would go with contract zoning. And the contract zoning would not be handled by us. So if somebody came in with a project for Best, they would go through the select board. So it would not start with us. And our input to that, I think, depending upon a sight unseen, whatever the attorney writes up in her thing, and certainly a question I have for next week is, what will be the role of the planning board in approval of projects? But I think the final approval, well, the select board will come up with a recommended approval. The final approval by project will be the town meeting. So it won't be a planning board final approval, it won't be a select board final approval. If it's being written as I think it's gonna be, each individual project will be taken to the select board the town meeting for final approval. I keep looking at George, but I think he's had some more discussion. I think there is a project in the works, which is one reason we're driving, they're driving towards an April meeting. And so the standards that we develop would hopefully guide the contract zoning to say, okay, if you're gonna approve this, these are the things that we want, minimums we wanna see.
So it sounds to me, you're talking contract zoning, we're gonna submit individual articles every time something like that comes up?
I don't know how they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I don't
got,
know enough about it, so.
Wait, didn't we just file a moratorium on this?
yes,
Then why is there an application?
There is no application.
there is no application, I think they have someone interested.
Sure,
And-
that's fine.
And so, we did the moratorium to develop the standards,
Yes.
develop in contract zoning and other things. And I may have misspoken, but I think there's probably always a reason, the need for speed.
Absolutely, there's
Yeah.
people that wanna do this,
Yeah,
but
it-
there's no, we're in a moratorium, there's a
Right.
reason we did that. To be able to have some time to develop standards or whatever. What is contract zoning?
So, I'll
let
give
George
you a
get- we'll
quick
get more
explanation.
details.
Hopefully next Wednesday,
Sure.
we can dive into it deeper with the town attorney. But basically, and this has been done in Maine for 30 years, started with big projects in Portland. And so the state legislature wanted to give local municipalities more authority to do a special zoning. Other towns use other mechanisms. In Falmouth, we did special zoning districts, which come as an amendment to the ordinance. Ocean View Retirement Community. That wasn't in the ordinance, but they created a special zoning district for that. Contract zoning is along those same lines. So basically what you do is generally a zoning district, you list all the permitted uses, and, you have your commercial areas, you have your industrial areas, you have residential areas, farm areas. Well, here what you do is you take one project and you create a special zoning district or a contract zone, and within that, you limit what can happen there to almost like a site plan. So then that becomes the zoning for that property. And it's a contract between the town and the developer and property owner that says this property is gonna have this use and that's all it's allowed, unless you come back to town meeting and change that, and you can negotiate. So you can't normally negotiate on a site plan to the level that you can with a contract zone. So you can negotiate off-site improvements. You can negotiate development of a water system, for example.
You mean like that, they pay for that?
They would pay for that, yeah.
Yeah.
And you negotiate all that,
So I don't understand, if we are tasked to build standards,
right?
why are we jumping to contract zoning if we can put in the standards everything you just mentioned?
Well, you don't, we've had this discussion with the town attorney and the select board. Okay, so my position is, think about the solar farms, that we went through all of those detailed discussions of safety, and this is even bigger safety
Yep.
issue.
Yep.
You don't want to be negotiating safety. That should be set standards. But what you can negotiate is off-site road improvements.
Right, but you can also include that in your standards of any sort of project. You can do what do we call these? Environmental benefit or a town benefit or anything like that.
Well, not exactly, not exactly. You cannot put into an ordinance negotiated benefits. That doesn't work. You can have set standards that apply, like
Yeah, standard, sorry.
Yeah.
It's not a standard, but it's like an additional item that the
Yeah, so,
applicant has to
the way I think
pay.
the simplest way to look at this is that right now, you can put solar farms anywhere in town, right?
Mhm. Yep,
Other than resource protection.
yep.
So anywhere in town, there could be a solar farm. And the Conservation Commission was saying, well, do we want these things anywhere in town?
Right.
So you were gonna try to create a plan for the town that said solar farms will only be allowed in these areas.
Yeah.
And you'd zone those areas for solar farms or can't have solar farms in those areas. What this does is boils that process down to site-specific considerations.
Right, but who's deciding, like, it's almost like, why are we doing this ahead of the I don't understand.
So what the standards will do is it will say, wherever you're gonna do these, here's how you have to build it, make sure all of these safety protections are part of it.
Uh-huh.
Then, the contract zoning gets you an extra layer of control to say, look, even if it's safe, you can't do one of these unless it goes to town meeting. That's what contract zoning
Okay.
does for you. Especially, we're talking mega projects.
Okay, so you're kind of just throwing another layer of approval.
Exactly.
For
Definitely.
So you're saying they
Exactly.
have standards, but they're going to have to go to town meeting to get it?
Exactly. For an industrial scale battery energy system, they'd have to go to town meeting to get
Like
that
any,
approved.
any size above whatever we decided, 20
Yeah.
kilowatts?
Well, you set what the level is.
Or, we'll set that in the
The
standards.
town of Green is going ballistic over a 600-acre solar farm.
I got turned down.
So, this would be, that, they would have to go to town meeting to get that approved. And I'm proposing that you include industrial scale solar farms and battery
But that would be
storage
set in the
systems.
standards.
No, that would be in the contract zoning. So those types of projects would only be allowed by contract zoning.
No, I know, I'm sorry. Who's setting the contract zoning specs? Who's setting how big?
The select board.
Well, they would just have, to if it goes over a certain level,
Right, who's setting that level?
the ordinance will set that in the contract zoning,
So who's doing the contract zoning?
the town attorney.
Oh,
And the
this
select-
is what you were just talking about?
Yes.
And the select
About-
board, yeah.
With the select board, so
Yeah.
that's what they're, okay.
Yeah.
So they're deciding which.
So
which-
so you could say in the ordinance,
Okay.
anything over a home residential battery energy storage system or a business, individual business, anything beyond that has to go to a town meeting vote for a contract zone. If it's approved as a contract zone, then you apply all of those standards that we're gonna be talking about to that project for safety purposes. If it doesn't get through the contract zone, it doesn't go anywhere.
But what if it's less than that?
If it's less than that, then they just have to meet the safety standards.
But
You
we're
don't
probably
go to-
talking
you go to
about
town meeting.
small scale, like George said, homes or.
Yeah,
you
or
know,
like the business guy that was in here.
to this, yeah. So I guess the point is we can learn more
To next week.
next week, and those are good questions to ask. I mean, I think, I certainly don't know a lot about it, so, the town attorney's coming in to tell us the relationship between that and the standards. But the actual verbiage of the contract zoning, just, for our information, that is the select board. The attorney's gonna write it up with George. The select board is going to review it, say this is what we want. They will write it up as an article and send it to us.
But don't you think they go together?
Yes.
Yes,
Well, then why are they in separate?
Because again, the standards will apply to any project that gets approved to make sure it's gonna be safe. The contract zoning will decide where in town they
But the
can
where and
go.
the safety, that is what I was thinking the standards were also, like, I was hoping we could bring in like a consultant to help us here.
We don't have any money for a consultant.
yeah, I don't think, it's not a bad idea, and the Conservation Commission's is working on that. I mean, they would like to work on it at least, I guess. Same with solars, where should we do that? So I guess George, correct me if I'm wrong, just Talbot's interpretation of what's gonna happen is I wanna put in a battery store, big industrial, whatever it is, 15 acres in Gorham, whatever it is in Rumsford. I come to the town of Durham, I go to the town manager select board and say, I want to do this. This is where I want to do this at. Pick a spot. And the select board will negotiate with them, and yes, that's where it's gonna go. Oh, by the way, if we approve it, these are the standards that you're gonna have to meet. but the select board will review the site, say that's on a bad road, you're gonna have to improve that road, you're gonna have to build a fire pond, I'm just pulling stuff out
So they're
now.
gonna do what planning board does for all the other projects.
With
But
sort
they
of.
can go far beyond what the planning board can do.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
gonna,
for sure, they have, what
They
I'm
can
seeing
negotiate.
is that, like, they're not, it's just, it's, this is crazy to me.
but.
Well, it's a powerful land use control tool that would be greatly beneficial to the town. It's a little bit beyond what you're used to, but many, many communities are using it.
Are we gonna have anything to review before next Wednesday?
I did post on the website
Okay.
today, the agenda for this meeting, and I
Okay.
included a general discussion, description of contract zoning.
Okay,
And the attorney's gonna lead that, correct?
Yep.
She'll be here to do that. But we should be able to and ought to get into the standards. And George, is that, I haven't had a chance.
The draft is on there
On the
along
website.
with the
So that's the
presentation.
stuff that we did with solar, heights, setbacks, security, decommissioning costs,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things. That is in our bailiwick to get done. And so George is working on that. I don't think there's input from the attorney on that, so.
And we just want, I mean, as John said, the select board's gonna be taking the lead on the contract zoning, working with the town attorney. We wanna keep you in the loop. That's why we're
Yeah, no,
that's why we're having that meeting next week,
Right,
so
right,
that you
right.
will understand it.
Are they not bringing in a consultant, or does this new lawyer have experience working?
This new lawyer has experience with it,
With batteries?
with contract zoning, not with batteries.
But they're not going, but they're going to say, I'm just trying to think of how to do this. I'll say this, if I come in and I want to put it on, 636 stack pole because, I'm close to the power line. How will they determine will they go and say, okay, we'll take it to the town approves doing it? Because when it goes to the town, it should also have gone through the standards. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if I have my project.
No, it'll have to meet the standards wherever it goes.
Okay, so the safety standards,
Will come after.
decommission will come, I guess, after it. If they say, just because they approved a site, if they won't meet the standards, they don't build.
That's
is that-
correct. Then you would
Okay.
have the standard site plan review process after the contract zoning is in effect. And if they don't meet the standards or the site plan review requirements, then you don't approve it.
Don't you think it should be the other way around, no?
But this is just to approve the definition of what contract zoning is, right? Is that what I understand?
Well, that'll be part
No,
of it.
This
no,
April.
it's doing it. It's, wait, what? What do you mean? Like what's
We
being
don't have
figured out?
contract zoning now.
Right,
Yes.
This is
right.
just to define
Just to
what
define.
contract
Yes.
zoning is.
Yes.
And what I wish it will include is where contract zoning could happen. Because what I'm hearing is it could happen throughout the entire town.
But it would have to go to a town meeting vote before it can happen
Can you imagine
anywhere.
though, can we just pretend we're at a town meeting right now? Someone gets up there and says, okay, this person wants this kind of project on this property. We're gonna get like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be like, what, who, where?
Well,
You know,
hopefully-
like,
hopefully
it's-
there's been
Well, they'll have to make a case for it.
Yes,
Certainly slows down development.
Well, of industrial scale mega
Yes,
projects.
so I guess-
Yes, it does slow it down.
Okay, all right.
But
So-
right now,
It's
just,
to say this is a definition, because contract zoning is not gonna just apply to BESS. It's gonna apply to.
yes, no, no,
Yes,
no, no,
they could
no,
solar
no,
farm.
that's not correct. That's not correct.
it's not,
This is gonna be written to say battery energy storage systems of a certain magnitude and solar energy farms of a certain magnitude can only be done by contract zoning.
I think that's a mistake.
That's a
Why?
huge
Because we
mistake.
don't know what's
Yeah.
coming next time.
yeah, I would agree. If somebody wants to put in a tanning facility or a space launch facility, and it's a good deal for the town, it should be open to, other projects.
we'll let you
You
debate that
can,
with
you can
council.
in the.
Yeah, I mean-
Fine.
You can
I
in
like the
the-
idea
agree.
of
I
contract
know.
zoning, but I don't think it should be limited to just these things.
Well, here's my thought, is we're kind of running out of time. These are all good discussions, we'll get to do it again on the 11th. And the attorney can make, you know, and I'm not saying it's bad, she's kind of led this with the select board. Those are the kind of comments we can send to the select board on the contract zoning piece. What we need to focus on is take a look at what George provided for standards. And let's talk about how to get there, because RP is done. You know, our changes to that's at the selectman just needs to send that back to us in a forum that we can do a public hearing on. But let's take a look at the battery the standards. Are we happy? What do we want to change? We're not gonna get to where they should go, and we're not gonna do that, I don't think, in the next time. But the select board should be saying, you know, as a group, we're not gonna approve it, in, I don't know, next to the elementary school. You know, that's, you know, these are the areas, and they can do that. That's the nice thing about contract zone. They can say, no, we don't want you to put it in that location.
Can I say two things? Sorry, two really quick things. One is I do know that, not me included, there are some very smart people in this town that know about this type of stuff. And if we can't hire a consultant, if we could reach out to others and say, hey, we're starting to do this, we need help, because honestly, the select board doesn't know anything about this. Like, they're very smart people, but like, they don't know best, and I don't think the lawyer knows best. They know contract zoning, but how are we gonna be able to develop this contract zoning on this type of use?
I don't think the select board is.
Keep them separate.
Yeah,
Contract zoning is one thing, best standards.
Yeah, I don't think they
separate.
need
I
to
know,
know.
but how are they gonna know what size can go where? That's gonna have to,
They'll have to make a case to the town meeting that it's okay.
right,
to
but how
put
are they
one.
gonna do that if they don't know about it?
I mean, zoning is a key component of this, zoning.
Yes, so what I'm just recommending is that there are a lot of good people that maybe
I've
select board.
already reached out to I've already reached out.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Well,
Good.
and let's hold that kind of discussion. We can have that with the
I just have one
attorney.
more thing though. I mean, is the idea to approve contract zoning ahead of, or for the April meeting?
Yes. The select board, I believe, is on a glide path to have contract zoning and the standards be approved on April 5th,
If possible.
if possible.
But
And that's
they would be together. If we
Yes.
can't make that, then they won't do theirs either, right? They won't approve contract zoning ahead of standards being developed.
They'll be
Or
done,
approved.
they'll be done simultaneously.
Okay.
I think so.
So Wednesday night's meeting is just for contract zoning?
No,
And I would like to go into the standards.
it's both.
Both.
It is both.
Yes, we will get an introduction to contract zoning, and then we'll stop. I mean, we don't, you know, we'll make our comments to her quickly, but then the meat of that meeting should be about the standards, because we've got to get into that, time-wise.
They're
We've
on the
got,
website.
and yes, so look at what George has provided, think about the things we've done in solar, recognizing there are things about BESS that are different.
Has
But-
much changed from the last time you sent us your comments? Or has anything changed?
I've updated some of the standards, but it's pretty much, and again, it's an extension of what we did on solar energy farms.
So, yeah,
A
let's.
lot of the same principles apply.
Yeah, so that's what I'd like to get into. For me, the contract zoning is, tell us what contract zoning is, what you think our role will be once it's approved. But after that, getting it approved at the town meeting, getting it written up is on the select board. Okay, so move.
Does the meeting start at 6:30?
6:30 here at the
on
fire
11th?
station.
Okay.
Okay, so having said that, and that's not gonna be a, you know, public input kind of meeting. It's gonna just, you know, I recommend strongly people watch it. Brian, you had two questions.
I haven't seen an update from Alan, from our CEO regarding building permits in a while.
Can't remember if I've seen November's or not.
Yeah, he did just send them out, and they've
Usually
had,
it's with our package, I just haven't seen it.
yeah, I could have updated you. I think you're up to 16 new single-family homes this year and about a half a dozen accessory apartments, no duplexes.
Okay, so he has updated, usually he sends a copy that I'll forward to you, but I haven't seen it for November. But it's usually, he did send it already?
I think so, yeah.
Because it's usually like next week, it's not like right on the first, but as soon as we get it, we'll, and George, if you've got it, please forward it to everybody. Because it was 6 last time I saw that report. And he didn't break out, or maybe he did break out ADUs. You
Okay,
had another
thank you.
question?
Yeah, the other one, we all received an email from, maybe it was Joe Roy, about Granite Farm. Are we supposed to be doing anything on that?
No, the code officer is investigating it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's sort of in my court. He sent me an email. Steve Recipione, who lives in
He
Granite.
sent it to the entire planning board.
Oh, did he?
And to the select board, yeah.
So
Yeah, that's why I'm mentioning it,
Yeah.
just it came to us all, I wasn't sure if we're supposed to act on that.
I think the answer is going to be, that's a very complicated subject. You really should talk to an attorney about how to change private road designations. So in the process we're going through, that's from the town, from George, town manager, and somebody else probably sent me that same thing. So
Okay,
Granite
maybe I'm
Hill,
mistaken, I thought this was, somebody was.
Well, there's two separate issues.
A
One is the
gravel-
gravel pit,
Yeah,
and the other is
The
the
traffic one.
road status. You're talking about the road status.
I haven't seen anything on it. When did the gravel pit come out?
Yeah, he was complaining about the guy running the gravel
A
pit.
lot of traffic.
The same guy?
Truck
Trucks
traffic,
going
yeah,
in
same
and out
guy,
there big
same
time.
guy.
Well,
You know,
welcome to the CMP power line, I mean, you know.
This is the homeowner sitting on his porch.
And he's in a horrible spot because he's on the road, they go past him, and the power line is right there, so. It is, they are getting close to being finished.
I think the problem was the traffic started before they came in for the power lines. It's not the power line traffic that he's complaining about.
No.
Up on
There's
something.
traffic coming from the gravel pit.
yep, but this is an approved subdivision.
Yeah, it's the one that we
turned
did, right?
into a gravel pit?
No, not exactly.
No.
I think there's a
But
place
kind
where
of?
they, yeah,
The code officer's trying to find out exactly what's going on.
I've not seen, yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't seen that. I've seen the one about, he had a question about how do I convert, how do we, I want to create an association and I want to change the status of this road, that he's on Granite Hill Road.
Oh, I didn't see
I have
that
not seen
email.
the gravel pit piece of it, the quarry piece.
This was a subdivision that we approved a while back, and it was a
Yes.
really weird situation, because he crossed CMP, all of the land was beyond CMP, and then, George, you remember this, and Juliet as well, I believe the developer passed away.
Yes, that's Granite Hill and,
Yeah, oh, that one.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a
Oh,
farmer,
gosh,
so
that
It
was
was
like
a
one of
really
the first
weird
ones.
setup,
Yeah.
but then somebody else took it over, somebody else.
This is the Halloween subdivision.
yeah. That's a whole discussion in it. So
It continues to haunt us all.
don't drive up that road in your Lexus is all I'll say about
But
it.
have any houses been built on that?
His goes back to 99 or something like that.
One house was built.
Yeah, there's, have been some, but not a lot. There's, so,
All right, as long as I don't have to
that's
worry
good.
about
I've not, I will try and find the gravel pit one.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, please raise a hand. Done. Thank you. Turn your microphones off. Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure what can be done for, I mean, quite truthfully, CMP in that area, my area is almost finished.